experience she had that relates back to a 2017 school trip to France. This sounds like a dream, but when it came time to leave, things went a little awry. Basically, Katie remembers distinctly flying back home from France with all of her classmates and friends, but they all claimed that they missed the flight. She claims that she remembers sitting 3 rows behind some of her friends and that they all took a taxi back from the airport to the apartments they stayed in during their time in school, but none of her friends remember this at all. In our number 7 spot today, we have the night at the apartment. This story comes from the TikToker thegem_m, and it has to do with the time they think that they and a friend might have accidentally shifted into some sort of parallel universe. Basically, they start off by explaining that they and their roommate like to kind of run around their apartment complex in the middle of the night just for fun. So one night they're doing this and they went to duet a really funny TikTok in the middle of these escapades. After filming the TikTok, they go to watch it back, and this is when they both stand up and look at each other super confused. Basically, they both thought that they were in a completely different location than when they stopped to watch the video. Like, we're talking about a difference of like 100 to 200 feet in a completely different part of their apartment, and they both had the same feeling. They were both super confused and thought that they were in the same location that it turned out they weren't actually in. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Master Manifester. Okay, so parallel universe TikTok is alive and well and thriving, so much so that people are now even giving tips on how to essentially time travel or jump into the reality you want to be in. A TikToker named Marianne Valenza, who calls herself a Master Manifester, can be seen on the app giving people tutorials on how to jump into your most desired timeline, and she says that in the shower is the best place to do it. She explains that the location is important because water is such a powerful conduit to the entire process. She explains that the first step is giving yourself time because it's not a process that can be rushed, which, I mean, given what we were talking about, that makes a ton of sense. She goes on to say that you need to soak yourself completely in hot water while you visualize, quote, the water cleansing you so that it removes all of your limiting beliefs, the negative thoughts that you have,
active viewer engagement, and so on and so forth.
Shampoo and lather with a strong smelling scent such as orange or cinnamon. Honestly, who knew that shifting timelines could be so easy, clean, and relaxing? In our number 5 spot today, we have the Shifter. Ashley Vask is a young woman from New Jersey who took to TikTok to explain that she has been shifting for a few years. She explains that her first encounter shifting into a different reality occurred by accident when she was listening to music. Basically, she shifts herself into a sort of Harry Potter world. She said, quote, I was obsessed with Harry Potter at that point. All of a sudden, I felt extremely weird. I woke up and I swear on my life that I felt like I was at Hogwarts. It was the craziest feeling. She did her research after this and found out about the phenomenon of reality shifting, and since then has begun practicing more and more, and now takes to TikTok to share her tips and tricks with others. She explains that her favorite method of getting into this world is what she calls the tunnel method. This sees her lying down, closing her eyes, and visualizing a tunnel in which she could see the Slytherin common room at the end of. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Dream Life. Mavi Juka is another Harry Potter world shifter whose TikTok account had about 200,000 followers. She used TikTok to explain how she used similar techniques as Ashley from before in order to achieve the appearance she wanted and also the family relationships she aspired to have. She also uses the shifting in order to head off to life at Hogwarts, and she said that for every 1 hour that passes while she sleeps, she experiences a month at Hogwarts. She explains that she doesn't use this power she's harnessed on friends because she doesn't want those relationships to be forced. In terms of her Hogwarts life, well, things are definitely more calm there than the wizarding world we are used to seeing, because she explains that Voldemort isn't a part of her Harry Potter reality. In our number 3 spot today, we have The Lesson. A TikToker named Mina, who goes by the username Soul Warrior, is helping people understand the multiverse and how it exists. She uses an example of a simple breakfast choice, either having a smoothie or pizza for breakfast. If you choose the smoothie, your reality continues on where you chose the smoothie, but there is also a reality in which you didn't choose the smoothie, which has another you in it living life under those circumstances. A small, inconsequential example that shows the complexity of parallel universes. She even took to TikTok to answer a really common question. Basically, it's the question of having a vivid memory from your childhood, but your parents swear that it never actually happened. Mina had an answer for this when she explained that this sort of thing is likely because you are pulling from from another timeline and just don't realize it. She goes on to say that all of these timelines are running parallel to each other and to completion. It certainly is an interesting point of view on something that is actually quite a common experience. In our number 2 spot today, we have the afterlife. Okay, so basically the premise or the idea or theory that this TikToker has come up with basically relates to what they believe happens after a person passes away. Her name is Jolie, and she describes herself as a philosophical artist. She boasts thousands of followers who she shares her theories with, and one of the most controversial that relates to this video is the theory that we never actually die and instead are just transferred into another universe, sort of like a cosmic reincarnation. She basically explains what is called the quantum immortality theory. She explains, quote, "If you're hoping that apocalypse is going to bring you that sweet, sweet relief, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. Quantum immortality theory suggests that nobody ever actually dies, that consciousness never experiences death."
Really
it's definitely
quantum
an
immortality
theory,
but
one
isn't
that
that like a bit
I have
redundant?
No way of either proving or disproving. So how about you guys let me know what you think of this one in the comments? Are we on board? In our number 1 spot today, we have The Night Out. This story comes from a TikToker who was responding to another TikTok that asked users to share their parallel universe stories. Basically, she starts off by explaining that she was driving with this guy that she was dating after a night out.
Because
she looked down
I would
at her
assume
phone
that
at one point to change the song, and when she looked back
existence
up,
on a
traffic was
quantum
suddenly
level
at a complete standstill. The car they were in
Damn
was
sure
going
it
70
doesn't
miles per hour, and they were just seconds away
apply
from
by the
rear-ending the
rules
car in
of
front of them. She just
goddamn
closed
it,
her eyes and
she's
braced for the
talking.
impact. She
Doesn't
was
apply
sure
by the
was
rules
about to
of
come.
our physics.
But when she opened her eyes, she was instead on the freeway, no traffic in front. Everything was fine. She looked over at the guy, expecting him to be absolutely shocked like she was, but he was just chilling and totally fine, like nothing at all happened. So this is all weird, but to make things even weirder, after this night, the guy she was with, she never saw him again. His number was gone. She couldn't find anything to do with him. Like, it was as if he never existed at all. She is left with no answers as to what could have happened here, either in the car or with this guy. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Tea Time. This story comes from someone who has a very strange memory from when they were around 9 years old. They were eating dinner in their room for some reason that they can't quite remember. What they do remember, however, is being sat at their dresser, which had a big mirror. While sitting there, the storyteller's dad came in to check on them and asked if they wanted more tea, to which they replied yes. They picked up their empty teacup and handed it to him and watched as he walked out the door. In the next instant, they looked back over and saw their same teacup, completely full of tea, right where they had just picked up the one that was empty. They of course asked their dad about this after, because what in the world is going on? And their dad said that he never came into their room at all. This story is bizarre for sure, but there's also something really eerie about it as well. I can totally see why this was one that really stuck with them.
In our 9th spot today, we have the knockoffs. Sometimes brand name pieces can be expensive, and we want the same or similar item, but cheaper. That's where knockoff brands come into play. Take a look at these cereals. They're so similar, yet so different. So we got Cocoa Rice instead of Cocoa Puffs. We got Honey Nut Crispy Oats instead of Honey Nut Cheerios. Fruit Rounds instead of Fruit Loops.
They talking about that's it.
Marshmallows
Everybody
and
know that. They
Stars
just ain't never
instead
been
of
broke.
Lucky
That's what it
Charms.
is.
Cookies instead of Cookie Crisp. And lastly, Kids Crunch instead of Captain Crunch. Now, if I saw an aisle filled with those, I'd think I was transported to another universe.
In our number 8 spot today, we have a new phone. Okay, this one wouldn't be the weirdest one in the world, but it has to do with the lost phone, and I just can't get over how strange the place they found it was.
All right, let's go.
So they write, quote, "My friend and I were talking to our roommate and her girlfriend one night. Roommate had just received her new phone and was sitting in bed using it while the 4 of us chatted. So roommate sat her phone down while we were all still chatting. She goes to pick it back up and it's gone. Like, she had just put it down for a few minutes, tops, before she noticed that the
they
thing
was
had
smoking that
poofed.
shit.
I call it for her and we can't hear it. We take the comforter and the sheets off the bed, shake them all out. We look under the bed, behind it, everywhere we can. That phone is gone. Even though we hadn't left her room at all during our conversation when the phone disappeared. We tore apart the whole apartment trying to find it. Finally, we decided to try her car. It was locked in the trunk. We live on the third floor, and we were all in the same room
they
watching
was smoking me last time. You know, I was a little, you know,
teleported.
I wasn't really paying attention, but now,
you're
bugging. You're not gonna kill me. You're bugging. Aha, you missed, dummy.
And you've got a lot of unanswered questions here. In our number 7 spot today, we have a server's nightmare. This story starts out with someone explaining that it comes from a time many years ago when they worked as a server at a restaurant. The memory begins with the quintessential server panic experience where their coworker forgot to punch in the food order for a 3-top. If you work in the service industry, you know the absolute panic that sets in, especially if you're like me and never write things down. You can't go back and ask these people what they had when their food should already be out and on the table. It's a panic like none other. Anyway, so this coworker not only forgot to punch in the food, but also, of course, forgot what the order was. This storyteller was laughing at their stressed coworker who was obviously trying to figure out what to do, and while laughing at him, the storyteller threw out a random order at them. They said, quote, it was probably fried mozzarella, a cheeseburger with no onions, and chicken fingers.
I'm not gonna hold you, that sounds good, but you know,
was joking and
fell
just
back from the
fun.
meat.
It turns out that somehow this was the exact order that the table had ordered and the person needed. It totally
imagine charging up for a strong ass move and missing it like that.
Let them run the food to the table to make sure that he wasn't making it up. Turns out the storyteller was right and probably saved their coworker a lot of stress and hassle. In our number 6 spot today, we have the camp photo. This story comes from someone who has always remembered this strange thing that happened years ago when they were 12 years old and at camp. They explained that they were taking a photo on a disposable camera
your pictures and all that.
were still
look at
in
my
the
cute
flip phone
family.
phase, and
And whoa,
considering the fact
what the
that
fuck
they
is
were
this?
12, even if they weren't, it's not like they had a cell phone anyway. So, with this disposable camera, they were taking a picture of 2 of their friends that they had made while at camp. This is all fine and well, of course, and honestly very cute, but it's what's seen in the photo that really has stuck with this person. They explained that in the photo, one of the friends appears twice in 2 entirely different poses. They explained that it still weirds them out every time.
I'm saying it's 2023 though. They got too many apps that could do that shit. You feel me? Like, you know, everything is
who almost had a premonition of sorts. They explained, quote, I was sitting in my office one day when my desk phone rang, and it is my undersheriff asking me to bring him all of the reports, dispatch logs, any documentation reference to a specific case, so I get it all together and start towards his office. I meet him in the hallway and hand him the paperwork. He asked me what it was. I told him it's the blank documentation you asked for. He then swears he never asked me for it, that he had just arrived and had not called my office. He was on his way down the hall to ask me to get it together. I mean, at the very least, I hope he gave this person a raise, because while this certainly was a weird experience, that's also the most efficient employee I've ever heard of. I hope that's not the new work standard, though. Like, what do you mean you didn't anticipate my needs? In our number 4 spot today, we have the repeater. This story is one that only lasted for about an hour, but it definitely was a strange and confusing hour for the person who experienced it. Basically, it started when they were watching TV with friends, and they ended up landing on some sort of old 80s movie that they used to watch many years prior, but hadn't seen in quite some time. All of the dialogue from the movie came flooding back to them, and they remembered what each character was going to say next.
I'm not playing with them.
Not so weird. Our brains work in mysterious ways. This, however, seemed to open some sort of gate, because when they changed channels and were trying to find something new to watch, this person was now able to recite every line of dialogue prior to it being said, as if they had memorized it all, but this time it was with shows they had never seen before in their life. This then translated into them being able to predict what their friends were about to say right before them saying it. Again, this strange effect only lasted for about an hour before things returned to normal, but what a strange hour that would have been. In our number 3 spot today, we have the inside scoop. Maybe this is a parallel universe story, or maybe this person is just a bit of a clairvoyant or something of that nature, but whatever you want to call it, this story is definitely a weird one. They write, quote, sometimes I'll be talking to someone I've never met,
I get some people
very
in this
specific
shit, man.
facts about them will pop into my consciousness out of nowhere, like this person had a golden retriever that died in 2009. Then they'll inevitably bring up the fact that I mentioned without me saying anything first, sometimes seconds later, sometimes years. This would be so strange and also so hard to navigate. You'd have all these things you seemingly happen to know about this person, and now you have to avoid bringing them up until they do. It's like knowing someone's secret. That would be really weird. If you had this sort of ability, would you tell people or would you keep it to yourself? In our number 2 spot today, we have the wake-up call. This story comes from someone who is explaining a very scary moment that their brother experienced that is kind of unexplainable. They start off by saying that it doesn't seem as though their mom believes this story, but they definitely do. Most of that is because they saw their brother after this incident and could definitely tell that something had seriously spooked him. They write, quote, "He was sitting in the passenger seat driving home alongside my mom. A bright green car swerved and hit them, knocking bits and pieces of glass into his arm. He jolted awake afterwards just in time to see the green car pass them. He claimed he felt the marks the glass left afterwards too." So basically, this guy might have somehow been in a reality where this accident really did happen and then was able to jump realities to one with a better outcome. Or perhaps he was just temporarily transported to the other one before jumping back into this one. The possibilities really are endless when it comes to the multiverse, and I can totally understand how an experience like this would have somebody pretty shaken up. Whatever really happened here, I'm just glad that this person somehow ended up in the timeline where everything is a-okay. In our number 1 spot today, we have the boiler repairs. This story is a bit of a longer one, but it's so strange and truly like nothing I've ever heard before. It absolutely shocked me. This person wrote, quote, "This didn't happen to me, but to my dad. He works for a heating and air conditioning company, so he often has to go out to people's houses to fix things. About 5 years ago, he told me he had a bizarre dream where he went on a call to an elderly woman's house. He'd never seen the house or this woman before, but he said it was bizarre because of how realistic the whole thing felt. He fixed her boiler in the dream, chatted for a bit, and then left. About a week later, his company gets a call from an elderly woman needing her boiler fixed. They sent my dad on the job. When he arrived, he said it was the exact same house from his dream and the same old lady. He knew her name before he even had to ask and knew his way around the house without having gone inside yet. When she opened the door, she said, 'Hi, Gary.' And when he asked how she already knew his name, she said she had a dream last week that her boiler broke and that my dad is the one who came to fix it, so she just knew that would be his name. Two complete strangers never having met each other had the exact same dream that they would meet each other, and they did. The whole thing is so crazy. That would be so strange, but also so cool. It's almost like they were destined to meet each other in some way. Honestly, the unexplainable can be terrifying, but it can also be kind of nice and cool and truly mystifying. All I want to know now is if Gary and the elderly woman kept in touch.
Alright, coming in at number 10, we have the deep space radio bursts. Mystery fast radio bursts were discovered in 2007. These bursts flash for a micro instant, but emit more energy than the sun does in 10,000 years. The high energy surges of long waves have been detected 18 times over the past 10 years, and one burst in 2012 recorded in Puerto Rico occurred numerous times in the same pattern. Okay, this is what it sounded like. After fierce debates and a lot of head scratching, the source of the sound was traced to a microgalaxy 3 billion light years away from Earth. A lot of theorists have concluded that the sound is a space signal from another world or a parallel universe looking to get in touch.
Coming in at number 9 are the crossroads. So back in November of 1986, Pedro Oliva Ramirez was making his way from Sevilla to his home in Alcalá de Guadaira. I hope I said that right. As he was turning a corner, he found himself on a 6-lane highway that had never been on the route before. Either way, he hadn't done the journey for a while, so he assumed it could have been new. He continued down the highway, but he started seeing weird things like 20-story housing units, 2-feet-high grass bordering the highway, and just unidentified metallic structures. After finally clocking something was off, he suddenly felt hot as hell in the car and started hearing voices in the distance, one of them which was telling him he was in another country in a different hemisphere. An hour into the drive to seemingly nowhere, Pedro finally gets to a sign pointing 3 ways. We have Malaga, Sevilla, and Alcalá. Hope I said that right. I probably didn't. He took the Sevilla detour, and 5 minutes later, he was outside of his house in Alcalá de Guadaira, which literally wasn't even possible because he took the route which would have taken him back the way he came, meaning further away from his house. Like, how did man like Pedro drive 3 hours to his sign and then end up back at home within 5 minutes? He even tried retracing his route but never found the crossroad or 6-lane highway again. And a 6-lane highway going missing, that is a big deal, you guys.
Coming in at number 8, we have the Bernstein-Bears phenomena. Also called the Mandela effect, the Bernstein-Bears phenomena claims to prove the existence of parallel universes with subtle differences. People vehemently claim that the Bernstein-Bears were spelled with an E and not an A, and honestly, I for one absolutely thought that the Looney Tunes were the Looney Tunes until I watched a video on the phenomena last year, and now I'm straight up convinced that I'm living in the wrong universe, as it is clearly Looney Tunes. They're cartoons. This new world doesn't make any sense. Some people out there are also adamant that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the late 1980s, which is more than just a slightly altered timeline. It's not just spellings here, this is a pretty major parallel universe event. Coming in at number 7, we have Deja Vu. Deja vu, a glitch in the Matrix, or a signal from a parallel universe. While both seem as likely as one another, it is thought by some that the weird moments where we feel like we've been or experienced something before are actually signals that something key is happening in our parallel lives. Not only do some people believe parallel universes exist side by side, some people think they interact with one another in some way. According to Dr. Michio Kaku, an American futurist, deja vu occurs as a result of a person's ability to flip between universes. Others believe it is because we're vibrating in unison with the frequency of another universe that's parallel with our very own. Oh, I've gotten cross-eyed. Coming in at number 6, we have the Lost Beatles album. A parallel universe may have given our world a gift in the form of a Lost Beatles album, Everyday Chemistry. The story goes that in 2009, a man called James Richards found himself accidentally in a parallel universe, as you do. Luckily, there was also a person from another parallel universe there, a man named Jonas. Now, Jonas was on a trans-dimensional tourism trip from the other Earth, and he told Richards that in his world, amongst other things, John Lennon was still alive and the Beatles never broke up. Richards then stole a copy of a later album never released by the band and returned with it to our Earth. What did he do with one of the most sought-after pieces of music from a non-history that almost but never happened here? He uploaded it to the internet. Eagle-eared fans were absolutely having none of it though. They said the album is comprised of clever mashups from all of the Beatles' solo careers. Richards later said that even though in an alternate universe the Beatles hadn't broke up, that didn't mean their future music ideas disappeared. I'm not so sure about this one, but I would love to hear what Paul McCartney has to say about it. Paul, tell us, is it real? I guess you're living in another universe so you don't know, but I don't know. I feel like you'd be able to answer. Coming in at number 5, we have dreams. Could our dreams be signals from a parallel universe? Some say maybe. In a number of First Nations cultures in North and Central America, people believe that dreams allow us to walk planes in other dimensions. Their reasoning is that dreams take place in color and can include all of their senses. They think that when you're in a dream, you are in another world. Perhaps a world you already exist in. If you're doing something strange in your dream, maybe it's a sign that actually you live a far stranger life somewhere else. Coming in at number 4, we have the bruise. Anyone else here bruise like a peach? Just me? Me? And the universe. In 2010, along with a team of researchers, Stephen Feeney of the University College in London announced that he had discovered patterns in the radiation background left over from the Big Bang. Now, this seemed to suggest that our universe bumped into not 1, not 2, but 4 other universes and was left bruised. Okay, what is the plural of universes? Universi? Universi? Universi. Also, from the bruising, further researchers in California think that it is clear that this leads to some kind of like bubble universe theory, which maybe I can get on board with. Maybe Men in Black got it right when they imagined us all as marbles in a big bag. Coming into number 3, we have the cold spot. In 2004, astronomers found something that baffled them, an unusually cold area of space. The area is 1.8 billion light years across and much colder than its surroundings. The area also contains 10,000 1,000 less galaxies than in other areas of a similar size studied in space. A researcher from Durham University in the UK believed that the spot could be evidence of a multiverse. They said it seemed as if a parallel universe smashed into ours, affecting it like a car pile-up on the motorway would, only they're calling it a cosmic shunt. They believe the impact was so vast it pushed energy out from a big region of space, therefore creating the cold spot. It's hard to get your head around, but that is what they think.
My bad, y'all. I'm stuck in these bets. Look at this shit.
In October 2015,
I ain't gonna hold you.
Chinese
Yo,
TV
FanDuel be trying to get y'all, man. I'm telling you, man. Be careful on them. I was up one day like $900. I swear to God. 2 seconds later, I'm like, yo, please, yo, bro, let me borrow $5 real quick. I got you. I just gotta wait till my account open again in the morning. Yo, I'm telling you, you gotta be careful with that shit. You see, I was just zoned out in there. I ain't gonna hold you.
The images were caught
But
on camera
that's how you
from
know
above
this shit,
sea
man.
and
These things is like
probably
little
went viral
instruments,
across the
man.
rest of
These
the
instruments
globe.
are
So
fucking
what on
destruction.
Earth or above Earth is going on? Or even though it looks like a city in the clouds
And look
to
at
you
me,
and me,
still on it like a
apparently it is an optical
beige head.
illusion called Fata Morgana,
Oh,
which is
I
the
hope I
natural
didn't dating
mirage.
shit.
So that is what a lot of scientists are saying anyway, but other people are convinced it's a sign of a parallel universe or even a window to another world. Finally, coming into number 1, we have black holes. The theory of loop quantum gravity suggests that there is no point of singularity in a black hole. Rather, they're simply folds in the universe. Everything we know about quantum physics tells us that information is never lost, that energy can't be created or destroyed.
You never know.
So, perhaps black holes don't suck and destroy. Maybe they suck and create. A lot of scientists are dabbling with the idea that black holes are indeed folds or portals to an older part of the universe. Professor Stephen Hawking gave a lecture in 2015 wherein he discussed how it may be possible to come out of the other side of a black hole. He said the hole would need to be large, and if it was rotating, it might have a passage to another universe. But you couldn't come back to our universe.
Yo, how my own
that one-way trip?
my own two bots is beefing. I gotta get rid of that one. I forgot. You know, I'm just starting out with this stream, and I'm learning as I go. Please don't jump on my back yet.
Something has already happened before,
Make sure I keep
and
it immaculate for you
scientists have
guys.
struggled to
So.
explain what causes it. Well, there's a theory out there that deja vu occurs when different universes are in sync for a short period of time. For example, maybe you're in the bathroom and you grab your toothbrush. In another universe, at the same time, maybe that version of yourself grabbed a hairbrush. Or in one universe, you pour a glass of wine. In another, you pour yourself a glass of champagne. Those things are happening at the same time, just with small differences.
Jump in the comments,
But you're in
everybody.
sync
What's up?
for
What's
that
everybody
moment.
doing today?
And that's why you think to yourself, oh hey, I've done this before. Because in
I don't
another
know if
universe,
everybody
you just actually
be on
did.
a stock
It's a
tip,
crazy
man.
theory, but many believe it's
CPST,
true.
man, I
mean, for all
swear,
we know, it is true. It's just hard to prove these
4,900
things.
and
Moving
some
on,
odd
number 9,
percent
we have the dreams.
gain
If you
in
guys are liking this
24
so far,
hours.
then
When I tell
smash
you I
that
missed
like
out on
button, because it really helps me out, and I
$400,000,
appreciate it
it's
real
like,
best. Some
yo, oh
scientists
my
believe
God,
that
I'm
dreams are
man, I'm
actually
still,
glimpses
you
into
know
a
what? I gotta just let it go.
universe. By dreaming, you are
Gotta let
seeing
go,
what
man.
yourself in another universe
Let
is
it
doing.
go.
1,000 years ago,
Let
mystics
it
believe that
go.
dreams are what are
Whatever
happening
she
in a
said,
parallel
plus
universe.
no.
But they also believe that this universe was home to
That's
ghosts
it.
and spirits. Well, over the years, scientists
But I'm
have
not gonna
agreed
hold
with
you,
this
man.
theory, minus
Playing
all
around
of
with
the
stocks is
ghost
just
and
like any other
spirit stuff.
gamble,
Well,
you know?
this
It's
could
like
explain why some people have had vivid dreams of places that they have never
a
visited.
gamble.
Maybe that's because their other self
However, it's
was
like the
currently
way
there
I look
visiting
at it is I didn't
Or
gamble
when you
with
see
pretty
something
much
in your
things.
dream and then the
Like,
next
why
day
not?
it happens in real life. That has happened to me on a number of occasions. Either you're psychic or you got an insight into another universe when you were dreaming, and that's how you knew it was going to occur. Now, there is no way
Insight
to prove
into
this,
another
but there's
universe while
also
you
no
dreaming.
way to disprove this. In our 8th spot today, we have the Flintstones. Who loves this classic cartoon? That and the Jetsons were pretty iconic. Smash that like button if you agree. Now, the Flintstones are pronounced as so you would think it would be spelt as so. No, apparently it's the Flint Stones with the hard T. I refuse to believe this. Now, you may be
saying from
thinking,
Bedrock,
Lindsay,
so it's
what's
like-
the big deal? Well, this is an example of the Mandela effect. I've talked about this before a lot. Basically, it's when a bunch of people remember something being a certain way, and another group of people remember it being a different way. The Mandela effect, for those of you who don't know, is named
But
off
you know the
of
crazy
Nelson
part is it's not
Mandela.
even
Because
them
people
remembering a
clearly
different
remember
way.
him dying in prison in the 80s when he didn't actually
It's
pass
them
away
keeping a
until
string of lies
2013.
along that
So
has
theory
nothing
goes
to
that
do
there are parallel
with
universes
what's
out
actually
there.
going on.
In
You
this
get what I'm
case,
saying?
we
Like,
have the Flintstones
when
universe and the Flintstones
enough person
universe.
have
Over
enough
time, maybe
influence
our
and they
universes
pass on
merged,
bullshit,
which is
that
why we
bullshit
have
now
the
becomes a
memory of
stem
the
of truth.
Flintstones. The show was actually named that just in another universe. Little things like these are signs that multiple universes are out there.
Real
In our
shit.
7th spot today, we have the strange space signals.
That
In
bot
spring
looks
of
shit pissing me
2020,
off.
NASA legit thought they found concrete evidence of parallel universes. Basically, they detected some odd signals coming from the South Pole. It was so odd that they had no explanation for it besides parallel universes. So basically, they discovered that high-energy neutrinos were coming up out of the Earth and headed to the sky. In fact, they found that this energy was coming up from the Earth instead of down from space. And this was weird for a number of reasons. The fact it was going up suggests that when the Big Bang occurred, it formed two universes, one that flows forward and the other in reverse, meaning the other universe is traveling back in time while we're moving forward. For them, the Big Bang represents an end, not the beginning. That is mind-blowing. In our 6th spot, we have Star Wars. This is another example of the Mandela effect, and it's going to make you freaking lose your mind. Who here is a Star Wars fan?
That
Smash
Bob
that like button or
shit
comment down below if you are. Well, even if you're not a fan, I'm sure you all have heard or seen that dramatic scene where it's revealed that Luke's father is, spoiler alert, Darth Vader. He goes, "Luke, I am your father." Wrong. Apparently, he never even said that, yet we all remember him saying the line exactly like that. And even huge Star Wars fans agree to this. Well, when you watch the scene, Luke says, "He told me you killed him," in regards to Obi-Wan telling him that Darth Vader killed his dad. Then Darth Vader replies with, "No, I am your father." So he never even says Luke, it's just no. What the actual heck? So again, people believe that this is a sign that we switched universes. In the other universe, the movie had Darth Vader say the line, "Luke, I am your father." In this universe, he did not. Mad at that one. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the black holes. This next theory was created by Stephen Hawking, and that dude was a freaking genius. So if he believes that black holes are a signal from a parallel universe, then maybe I do too. So in 2016, Stephen Hawking created a study in which he proposed that black holes actually lead to another universe. Instead of destroying everything that goes near them, it just transports you into another universe. Previously, it was said that anything that gets sucked into the hole will be destroyed and lost forever. But in this case, they would just travel through and pop out into another universe. Maybe that's why scientists are starting to discover weird space objects that look unlike anything from our universe. It's because they're coming from a different universe. Maybe Stephen Hawking is onto something, and black holes are actually portals. In our 4th spot, we have the simulation. In 2018, researchers ran a massive computer simulation that involved building a new universe under a variety of different conditions. And they discovered that universes could still be created even with less dark energy as ours. Study co-author Pascal Elahi said, and I quote, "Even in universes with 300 times as much dark energy as ours, life found a way. Our simulation showed that the accelerated expansion driven by dark energy has hardly any impact on the birth of stars, and hence places for life to arise. Meaning, other planets can exist in other universes, even if that universe was being torn apart by dark energy." He continued on saying, and I quote, "Even increasing dark energy many hundreds of times might not be enough to make a dead universe." They then went on to believe that aliens are living on planets in other universes. The reason we haven't found them yet is because they're in other universes, not ours. In our 3rd spot, we have the pattern. A number of astronomers started picking up a weird signal coming from the sky. Basically, the signal will chime for 4 days, then after the 4th day, it'll stop. It will then stop for 12 days before picking up again and doing the same thing over and over again. It's thought that maybe on the days where it's not sending a signal towards us, it's actually sending a signal in another direction or to another universe. Some believe that this is coming from aliens or other life forms, or from people in another universe. If not, what else could it be? The signal is very consistent, and they still don't have an explanation for it. In our 2nd spot, we have the silence of the lambs. Here's another Mandela effect example that will make you lose your mind. Okay, All of you have better seen the movie Silence of the Lambs. If you haven't, you're not a true horror fan. Anyways, for some reason, we all remember Hannibal Lecter going, "Hello, Clarice." You know, that was my Anthony Hopkins impression. Pretty good one. And he says it in a really freaking scary way. But apparently, he never said that in the movie. He only has said good morning during their first meeting. This is not okay. I literally can picture him saying it right now. So here's another sign that there are multiple universes. There's a universe where Anthony Hopkins does "Hello, Clarice," and one where he doesn't. And in our number one spot today, we have the cosmic bruise. In 2017, cosmologists discovered a weird cold spot in the universe. After studying it, a number of people believe that this cold spot is a bruise that was left after our universe collided with another universe. Professor Tom Shanks in Durham University's Center for Extragalactic Astronomy said, and I quote, "One explanation for the cold spot
that's
is
all that they
might
can
be the
compare it to,
remnant
because that's all
signal
that their
collision
minds
of
can
our
like
universe
fathom. You
and
get
one
what
of
I'm
the
saying? And
trillions
like
of
it's more than
others.
just
In fact, the team
a
found
planetary
4 bruises,
collision. You
meaning
know
that
what I'm
our
saying?
universe
There's
has
things out
collided
there, bro.
several other times in the past.
Things
Meaning
out there that
there
may
has
have
to be
planetary
multiple
powers,
universes
and you know,
out
like
there.
if you're not
Starting off
thinking
at
in
number
that
10
way,
spot,
or
we have
even
two
if you just
phones.
denounce it from
This
your
story had
system
my
of thinking
mind
altogether,
absolutely blown, but
you're
when I looked at the
relinquishing
replies, it
rights
was
to a
brought
whole
new
different
level.
form and
This story
you
reads,
know,
quote, "Okay, I
a
know this
reservoir
sounds
of
a bit crazy.
information, bro. You'll
So,
never
to
get
start
to any
off my
type of
story,
truth like
my
that.
mom and dad are divorced, and my dad just came to pick me up. But yesterday, my mom got an infection somewhere in her lower abdomen. While my dad was driving to his house, my dad started to call my mom, and she picked up. But they couldn't hear each other. So my dad hung up, but then like 20 seconds later, we both got a call at the same time, but by 2 different numbers. We both answered, and on the other line was my mom. We started talking, and she sounded the same, but like I said, they were 2 different numbers, and me and my dad are just sitting there looking at each other like, are we losing our minds? We started to talk to, quote, my mom, and she was saying 2 different things while we were both talking to her. And now, I don't know if I'm losing my mind or what. Okay, so I was like, that story is really strange, and I don't really have an explanation for what could have happened.
But you know, strange, you know what I'm saying, is like the universe itself is strange. So I'm not trying to focus on anything that's normal per se anymore.
This was a case of a temporary reality slip or merge. Like, what in the world is that? My mind is blown. In our number 9 spot today, we have the nap. This wild story took place in 2022.
Yo, you gotta understand, we live in constant reality slips and merges every day as we interact with different individuals.
When they woke up, they were on the couch.
There's no mindset that's set to one standard, you know, with rules that dictate just one individual or one sect of individuals. You know, everyone
their
thinks freely
2020 self and what they look like currently
without understanding on what they're thinking about to begin
if
with.
that makes sense. From here they wrote, quote, "I looked around and ran down the hallway when my manager stopped me and asked me what was wrong. I asked him what year it was, and he said 2014. I insisted to him it was 2020. I ran up the stairs and everyone was looking at me. Everyone was acting like I worked there the last 6 years and nothing changed. Everyone asked me what was wrong. Then they head to the apartment.
Yo,
that they
make sure
lived
y'all
in
share the
2014,
stream, man,
and
to
it
get some
looked
more
exactly
people
the
in here.
same, and their parents were there, who also confirmed that the year was 2014, and also began asking what was wrong and what was going on. This is when the story takes the craziest turn, though. They open their bedroom door, and their ex is lying in their bed, but this ex is also the current 2020 version of themselves, not the 2014 version, and they too have this awareness that they're back in time. They then went on to write, quote, "They told me they," meaning the ex, "brought me back. They were fully aware of what was happening. After talking for what felt like days in our old apartment, they left. And I went back to sleep in my own bed and woke up back in 2020 in my bed. I truly can't explain what on earth happened here, but it definitely is unbelievable." In our number 8 spot today, we have Parallel You. This strange story starts out with the storyteller setting the scene for us. They wrote, quote, "This happened about 5 years ago when I lived with my parents. It was about 5 minutes after 8 a.m. and I had woken up, went downstairs and sat in the recliner. Dad was sleeping on the couch and Mom was in the kitchen cooking breakfast, biscuits and gravy. Everything was normal. Okay, this sounds like a great time so far, but just wait. They then explained that they moved from the recliner to the dining room, and then boom, suddenly they're at their friend Paul's house like they've been there the whole time. There are a couple other people there, and someone who's underneath a jacked up car working on it. This is when they write, quote, "The guy underneath the car asked me to hand him the new muffler that was laying right beside where I was standing. I picked it up. I remember it had some weight to it. I recall the heat of the sun hitting me in the face. It was about 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. afternoon. I knelt down to give him the muffler and the weight being lifted up when I handed it to him. It was just all so vivid. So now, when the storyteller went to stand back up, they heard this sound that was similar to the splash sound that occurs when somebody jumps into a pool. Immediately, the sound then went into reverse, and then there was a loud clap sound, and now they're back in their dining room. They go on to write, quote, I looked around, looked at the clock, and it was only 8:12. Dad was still on the couch, Mom was still cooking breakfast, and I went into the kitchen to ask her what that loud clap was. She gave me a puzzled look and said, what clap? I covered it up by saying it must have been on TV, and I sat back down trying to process what had just happened, knowing if I tried to tell her what happened that she might think I'm crazy. So I dropped it and moved on with my day as normal. I've never had anything like this happen before.
Hitting me like that when we get 40.
They finish off their post by saying that they think they might have transported temporarily to their body in an alternate reality, and to be completely honest, I have no other ideas of what could have gone on here. In our number 7 spot today, we have Who Was That? Okay, I'm gonna need your opinion on this one and what you guys think is going on here, because this one has me a bit confused. So, this post says, quote, this happened about 2 years ago. So my fiance and I were lying down in the living room, his face is facing towards me and my face is towards him. My face is looking towards the wall behind him and his face is towards the living room space. On the verge of waking up, my mom walks from the kitchen to her bedroom, in which you have to pass the living room in between. She asks, are you both okay? Asking from her bedroom. Not thinking much, my fiance and I both answer, yes. In that moment, I got confused because I remember my mom telling me earlier in the morning that she was heading to town and she wouldn't be back until the afternoon. I get up from the couch, go to check her bedroom, and there is no sight of my mom anywhere. I told my mom about this and she confirmed that she had been in town from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. My fiance and I still talk about this to this day, and we are still freaked out about this. So my first thought was obviously a dream, but the fact that they both experienced it is the thing I can't get past. So what do you think happened here? Some sort of shared dream experience, something to do with parallel universes, some weird ghost thing? At this point, I have no idea. In our number 6, we have the train to nowhere. It doesn't matter what train you're on, where it is, or whether it's underground or above the ground. When the doors close, everything is lawless. I feel like trains are always the portal to another world, and this story only proves my theory. This story reads, quote, 3 years ago I was riding a train. Got my ticket checked and took my seat. A few stops later, someone else turned up and seemed to have booked the exact same seat to the same destination. The same train conductor that checked my ticket earlier came, we compared our tickets, and it turned out I was booked on a non-existent train number with the same destination at the time, but strangely enough, I had the same name as the one I shared a seat number with. Tried to check up on the number for my ticket afterwards and didn't get any hits for my actual train number. This is fully some platform 9 3/4 stuff that I cannot understand. In our number 5 spot today, we have Am I Really Here? Okay, this Reddit story starts off with the OP explaining that on February 20th, 2022, they dreamed that they were in a car accident. They then go into extremely vivid detail of the scenario that led up to the accident itself, and then the aftermath of it, and they could so viscerally feel all of the things as they were happening. Their car ended up in water, and they found themselves unable to escape, and they explained the thoughts that flashed through their mind of their family. Their phone was nearby, and they managed to call their girlfriend, who didn't answer, and they left one last voicemail. It's all very detailed and horrifyingly sad, and they end it by writing, quote, I remember crying to myself, trying to think of something else I could do to get out of this, to survive, but the water kept rising, and in the end I simply stared up through it at the faint flashing light at the surface, blue and red. I prayed until my vision went black and I couldn't fight to hold my breath any longer. And then I woke up, alone in bed, freezing with a cold sweat, but awake and confused. I don't know how or why I'm here, because I died. I felt my body die. I felt the water enter my lungs and the pain that it caused. I felt it all. I shouldn't be here.
I've met a lot of people
this person
who,
thinks that they passed away in one reality and jumped into this one where that was all just a terrible nightmare. That is horrifying. That would be the most terrifying experience ever. Was this just a very vivid nightmare or an example of someone who jumped universes? In our number 4 spot today, we have The Real Me. Okay, this story is a bit of a longer one, but it's so worth it, I swear. It reads, quote, I was shopping at a thrift store in a small town I lived in several years ago. I was looking around and happened to be near the checkout counter. An old lady came out from the back and said, "Are you?" said my name. I said yes, figuring I'd worked with her or something in the past, although she didn't look familiar to me. My name is not super common anymore, although I do see it on personalized items on a very infrequent basis. She was really excited to see me. She asked if I was still working at a certain school in a neighboring town about a half-hour away. I was confused and told her I'd never worked at a school in that town or any town. She appeared confused and stated that we had worked at the school together for a long time. I politely said that she must have me confused with someone else. She seemed like she was kind of scared at that point and again asked if my name was what she had stated before. I said yes, and she said, well, you look just like her. We chatted a bit about this other person, and I asked what this other person's last name was and gave mine. She said she didn't remember, but she could have sworn that I was her. We laughed about it, and I finished my shopping and left. I didn't think much about this till a few weeks later when I was walking down a street near my house. A woman, not the one from the thrift shop, came out of her house, saw me, and asked if my name was, said my name. I said yes. She also became excited and asked if I was still working at the school in the nearby town. I again explained that she must have me confused with someone else. She also said that I looked just like this other person with the same name, and she also didn't know the other woman's last name. This actually did creep me out. I've been mistaken for other people before, but not twice in the same month for a person who looks like me and has the same name with the same spelling. I think it is possible another reality crossed briefly with this one, and this was the result. No one has mistaken me for this one. You guys, imagine how strange that would be. I swear, I wouldn't go anywhere ever again. In our number 3 spot today, we have the memories. Okay, this story starts off on June 16th, 2015. Our storyteller was really into visiting the skate park at this time and was on an out-of-town trip with their mom and ended up visiting a skate park while on this trip. While at the park, they unfortunately ended up getting in an accident that led to them being unconscious for a few minutes and having a few minor injuries, such as broken ribs. It definitely could have been worse, and they were lucky to walk away from the accident, but during their time unconscious, they experienced something that they refer to as the 7 minutes. During this period, they explained that their life flashed before their eyes and that they went through basically all of their memories, and then it was black. When they woke up, after some time, they began to realize that while everyone looks the same, no one shares any of the same memories that they now have. The ones they saw during the 7 minutes. They have also stated that they now have this ability to feel when a family member dies, and as an example, they explained that they told their mother of their grandfather's death 20 minutes before she got the call. I think that would have been a really weird conversation, but once the phone call came, it was likely quite eerie. In our number 2 spot today, we have a bike ride to another universe. This is a story that I have no explanation as to what could have happened, but when I first read it, it gave me that shivery kind of feeling. It was posted on Reddit and it wrote, quote, I was 11, maybe 12. We lived on this large piece of land in the desert with a truck repair shop on it. Most of the time we'd hear the mechanic tinkering away in the shop, or our neighbor would be sitting out on his step. In the summer of 2013, I rode my bike out to the back of the property. There was a big hole with sheet metal covering it, and I liked to ride my bike across because it would make an awesome thunder-like noise. I had done it hundreds of times, but this time it was different. I rode across, and when my bike tires touched the dirt, I immediately felt different. Everything felt too silent. Everything felt static, like it was frozen. Like if I tried to move anything, it wouldn't move. I was honestly too nervous to ride back to my house. I felt like I would show up and everyone would be gone. Just missing. No people, no animals. I took a 15-minute break and just pedaled back. I always think about this. Maybe the vibration from the sheet metal was enough to create some sort of disturbance. Maybe being off in the back of the property by myself, but I loved doing that because nobody bothered me while I rode my bike. I never had any other experiences like that, and every time I went back to that part of the property, I would take my dog with me on a leash so I wouldn't be all alone. What do you guys think happened here? In our number 1 spot today, we have Breakfast in a Parallel Universe. Breakfast at Tiffany's or Breakfast in a Parallel Universe, this Reddit story honestly could be the plot of a movie. The Redditor wrote, quote, my husband and I bought a country house, a place that we go to and work on most weekends. It's in a small town in Texas. One weekend we happened upon a restaurant that we had never noticed before. We entered and I remembered an older man, another customer with a cowboy hat on, said, you can just seat yourselves. So we made our way to a little table that was open in the middle of the busy restaurant. We ordered breakfast, ate, and left. Everything seemed normal. 1 or 2 weeks later, we tried to find the same restaurant and never could find it. We drove all around the town and on each of the roads out of town and never found it. The building where I could have sworn it was boarded up and abandoned. The building looked the same, but long deserted. I feel like this could either be like a cool drama or an awesome eerie thriller, you know? But either way, this story would have had me extremely confused and questioning a lot of things. It's crazy to me that they both experienced the same thing because it takes away a ton of other possible explanations. Starting off at our number 10 spot, we have The Close Call. This story comes from a guy who loves cars, but had a weird moment about 15 years ago that he just couldn't get off of his mind. When he was in his early 20s, he loved to speed in cars and just wanted to go fast. His friend had a car that he really wanted to drive, and one day it just turned out to be his lucky day and his friend finally gave in. He hopped in the driver's seat with his friend who owned the car in the passenger seat and another buddy in the back, and off they went. They went to an empty freeway around 3 a.m. and put the pedal to the metal. Once they hit around 135 miles per hour, they began to see a bunch of semi-trucks. There were 3 basically driving side by side, taking up all 3 of the lanes, and certainly not going as fast as our speed demon friend. He thought to himself that there was an on-ramp coming up and he would just use that as some extra room to pass, but unfortunately, as he approached the on-ramp, another semi was entering the freeway and occupying that 4th lane. With all 4 semis lined up, he was approaching too fast with no time to brake, so he closed his eyes and prepared for the worst. But then, nothing happened. He opened his eyes and the other guys in the car were just as confused as he was. Somehow they were now in front of all of the semis, but there was literally no room for them to have passed by them. This was the end of his speeding career, as he was super spooked as to what possibly just happened. Was this a real-world glitch, or did he somehow enter a reality where he wasn't in an extremely dangerous and potentially fatal situation? In our number 9 spot today, we have The Strange Storm. This story goes that a couple were at home just doing some household chores when something super strange happened to them. The husband went to open the front door to toss a dirty rug out of the house, and it was just completely pitch black outside. The weird part is that it was at 2 p.m. and from inside the house, it looked like a regular sunny afternoon with light coming in from the windows. They said that suddenly outside the front door where it was dark, it's like the sun was a light bulb and it just went on, then off again, and then on. They described it like the flickering a light bulb does right before it's burnt out. The wife asked her husband if he had seen that and he replied, yes. What just happened? They also said there weren't any clouds out either, so it couldn't have been a cloud blocking the sun. Were they transported to some alternate reality for a second? I honestly have no explanation for what the pair witnessed. In our number 8 spot today, we have The Disappearing Town. This story comes from a person who often commutes to a town around 3 hours away from the one that they live in. One day they were doing the 3-hour drive with their mom, and they got to the part that takes about a third of the entire drive, and it's an area that just has a lot of like mountains and cliffs and nature. So the person telling the story is in the passenger seat and their mom is driving, and as they look out the side of the window over one of the cliffs, they see a small community that they had never seen before. The community looked nice and it consisted of mostly bungalows, which is apparently not normal for the area. Both them and their mom were super confused as to how they had never seen this community before, but it gets even weirder. They never saw the community again. It just disappeared as quickly as it appeared. Did they accidentally drive into another dimension one day? In our number 7 spot today, we have Slightly Different. One morning in 2008, a woman named Lorena woke up in a life that was similar to the one she was living in when she went to sleep, but certainly not the same. At first, it was just things like her bed sheets and pajamas, but when she got to work, things began to escalate. Lorena realized that her office wasn't her office and that she worked in the same building, but in a completely different department. She had never even met her boss before, so she knew this couldn't have just been a moment where she got lost or confused. When she returned home after the workday, she was met by her ex-boyfriend, only to find out that he was apparently her current boyfriend. She tried to find the person that she had been dating for months, but he didn't seem to exist in this new life and world that she now found herself in. Lorena began to seek psychiatric help because she was fearing she was having some sort of nervous breakdown, but all the tests revealed that she seemed to be of sound body and mind. The strange occurrences continued when Lorena asked her family how her sister was doing. Lorena knew that her sister had recently had shoulder surgery and she wanted to check in, but when she asked her family, they were baffled by her claims and insisted that there was no surgery that had taken place on anyone in the family. Lorena couldn't find any answers to her situation and was having no luck with a medical explanation either. She is convinced that she went to sleep one night and woke up in a parallel universe that was altered slightly by small decisions that she had made. Honestly, after all of these stories, I think I kind of might believe her too. In our number 6 spot today, we have Moving. So this story comes from Reddit, and it starts off one day when a guy gets a call from his neighbors asking him if he can help them move a mattress upstairs. They had a good relationship with the neighbors, so of course he was willing to help. When he got there, they got the mattress all moved, and the neighbors asked if he wouldn't mind helping with an armoire as well.
Let's see.
No problem, he thought, as he began to help them move that one up the stairs as well.
Who won Cuba
This is when things went awry, however. There were 11 stairs at the front. He was on the lower end carrying the armoire, and about 6 steps up, his friend at the top lost a handle on it, and the whole thing came crashing down on him since he was, of course, at the bottom. He loses his balance and falls backwards towards the pavement, and this man actually remembers dying from this fall. The next thing he remembers, though, is waking up in his dining room with his phone ringing and his wife asking him if he's going to answer the phone. He is obviously super freaked out because he literally just remembers dying 2 seconds ago, but now he's here? When he answers the phone, it's his neighbor asking if he can help move a mattress up the stairs. He surprisingly goes over again to help, and when he gets there, he says he can help with the mattress, but not with the armoire. His neighbor is shocked because he doesn't know how he could have possibly known about the armoire. Did the guy have some sort of premonition, or did his death in one reality bring him into a different one? Who knows, but I hope he's taking advantage of this second lease on life. In our number 5 spot today, we have The Breath. This Reddit post comes from the user Cat22L, and they wrote, quote, "About 30 seconds ago, I was sitting on the couch as my dog walked by to go sit on her bed we have behind the L part of the sectional. She had something small caught in her throat last night, I think a popcorn shell, so I was paying attention to her breathing just to make sure she got it out. For a few minutes, she was breathing fine, and then what sounded like a light snore started happening. This is semi-normal for her depending on what position she's laying in, so I didn't bother to go over and check on her. That went on for about 5 minutes until the most disgusting, and to my now realization, terrifying, snore/cough/wheezing sounds started happening. I go over to her to make sure she's okay, and the exact moment I looked at her bed, the sound stopped mid-breath, and she wasn't there. She was outside with my parents and had been for around 30 minutes. There's no way to get out of the room without walking right past me. I don't know whose dog I saw and what was making that creepy-ass sound 5 feet away from me, but I'm going to be staying outside for the rest of the day and hiring an exorcist. Maybe this is a weird parallel universe story, or maybe this is just a full-on demon. What do you guys think? In our number 4 spot today, we have The Road Trip. One day in 2006, a woman named Carol was driving through San Bernardino, California on her way to Paris, California, where she was going to stay for a few days. On her travels, she saw a sign for Riverside, which was nearby, and she decided that since her family had roots there, maybe it was time to stop in for a visit. As she went into Riverside, she realized that everything looked different from how she remembered it, and she was unable to find her old house that she grew up in. She tried to go to the street that her grandmother used to live on, but that one was different too. And when she tried to visit her grandparents' graves at the cemetery, the whole place didn't even exist. Even the people who were living in the town gave Carol a bad feeling, and she didn't even want to get out of her car. She decided she would be better off just continuing on her trip, and she left Riverside. Carol didn't return to Riverside until a few years later after her dad had passed away and she was attending the funeral. To Carol's surprise, when she went to Riverside this time, everything was as she remembered it from her childhood. Carol believes that somehow that day she ended up in some sort of a parallel universe form of Riverside, and she even said that she felt like if she left her car that day, she was going to get stuck there. In our number 3 spot today, we have the new location. So one day this person was driving to work on the same route that they took every single day. They worked the whole day through and got into their car to head back home on the same path. As they're driving, they start feeling super anxious and like on the verge of a panic attack. They keep driving and then they suddenly see this huge power plant all lit up. They're super confused because they drive this road every single day. How could they miss this glaringly obvious thing? Then their boyfriend calls and asks them to pick up McDonald's on the way home. No problem, they go through the drive-thru. When they get to the window, they see an employee they've never seen before, even though they're at this same McDonald's almost every single day. And this new employee is the only one there, and they say that they've been working there for around 2 months. They take the food and head home, and when they get there, they begin to tell the boyfriend about this strange power plant that they saw. Their boyfriend explains that it's always been there, so he doesn't know what they're talking about. Now every day they drive past this power plant with no idea how it got there or how they had missed it, but they've also noticed a few other small differences in their life. Their dog doesn't know the tricks it used to know, or how their boyfriend pronounces some words differently from before. Maybe they slipped into a new dimension on their drive home from work that day. In our number 2 spot today, we have Honey. This story starts off with a woman who we'll call Anna having her bi-weekly phone call with her mom just to catch up and see what's going on. Anna's mom unfortunately had to inform her that Anna's sister's dog named Honey had passed away. Anna was obviously super upset at this loss and called her sister to check in after hearing the news. Anna asked tons of questions about where they were planning to bury her, as well as asking how her sister's son was doing with the loss. Anna told her boyfriend how upset she was about the loss of the dog, as they had really had a bond. Flash forward a couple of months and Anna is heading home for Thanksgiving. Her sister was heading out of town to spend the holiday with her in-laws, so she left her pets at the parents' house so that they could be watched over. As Anna walks into her parents' home, she sees Honey, healthy as can be, sitting in the living room. Anna was of course overjoyed, but asked her mom why she had told her that Honey died. Anna's mom was very confused and said that that conversation never happened. After leaving her parents, Anna asked her boyfriend, and he said he was super glad that she brought it up because he also remembered this conversation. Did they somehow enter a world where Honey was still alive? While this would be such an amazing surprise, it would also be unbelievably creepy. In our number 1 spot today, we have The Crosswalk. Okay, maybe a parallel universe story, maybe a glitch in the Matrix story. Either way, when I came across this one on Reddit, it actually gave me goosebumps because it was just so strange. So let me set the stage for you. The original poster of this story, for a few weeks prior to this incident, had been noticing this sort of mundane thing that he found that many people did. The thing was how pedestrians will wait at a crosswalk until the walk sign comes on, and when it does, he was finding that people will usually pull their cell phones out of their pocket and look at them as they walk across the street. Nothing too strange there, it was just a thing that he had noticed. So flash forward to this specific incident, this guy is driving with his daughter. He goes on to write, quote, "We stopped at a red light at a crossing and there was a man standing there. Nothing out of the ordinary, denim jacket, black cap, glasses, around 6'2". I thought I'd try to weird out my young daughter. She's 5, so I knew this was going to blow her damn mind. So I said, see that man? When the walking man goes green and he starts to walk across, he'll reach into his pocket and pull out his phone and start looking at it. Watch and see." As he walks across, he reaches into his pocket, but then immediately takes his hand out and looks and points right at me with his mouth open, smiling like a gotcha stance. Of course, my daughter found this absolutely hilarious, and I sat there completely mind blown. I must have sat there in silence looking at him walk across for the next 10 seconds. I drove on and had a look at him as I drove past, and he was smirking and laughing. Of course, I'm thinking that he must have heard this guy somehow, but the poster goes on to say that the windows were up, the radio was on, his voice was at a completely normal volume, and this crosswalk guy would have been like 15 to 20 feet away. He finishes the post by saying, quote, "I can't figure out at all how he could have heard me. It's literally impossible. How did he know I was trying to predict he'd reach into his pocket for his phone? The only even remote possibility I can think of is that he has had the same observation as me and thought I might be thinking the same thing, so he just went for it. But realistically, what are even the chances of this?" This story truly is just an incredibly weird one.
At number 10, we have I Flew In From Torrid. Going to another universe sounds good, but you have no idea what's going to be on the other side. Maybe it's going to be really simple. Maybe it's a universe where everything is the same, but everyone's left-handed. Or maybe it's a reality where the Nazis won the war, and O.J. Simpson leads a fighting force in America against the Nazi forces. Well, the man from Torrid probably wished he stayed back in his universe. It was 1954, and a plane just landed in Tokyo. Everyone was getting off, and everything seemed normal. But then one dude halted everything. Custom officials ran out and started investigating this one guy. He had all his documents, but he was from a country that didn't exist. It was a place called Torrid. The man in question said that it was a very real place and that he had flown from Torrid to Japan many times. At first glance, this guy seemed to be a whack job, but then the crazy thing was that all his paperwork was legitimate. He had official stamps on his passport to back all of his stories and claimed that the country of Torrid was squeezed right in between France and Spain. The custom officials in Japan were stumped, and I understand why. fly. There isn't anything in the training manual about how to deal with interdimensional travel.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but next time jump in the comments, man. You should have been commenting. We could have been talking about the finance and everything. I could have been putting you into the stocks. I could have put like brought up the chart and put it up on one of them little boxy thingies up there. You know, so we could do that next time. You know, remember I told you I wanted to do it like that. You know, I want to make this more family oriented. You know, like we could really all learn from this shit. I just showed you how easy it was with $5. You just got what 24 something, 20 something dollars in free stocks. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't know. I love you though. I'm here. You know where I'm at.
Is not this guy's real name. He uses a fake name so the powers that be won't find him. But his story goes like this. He says that him and his dog were going for a stroll through the Del Puerto Canyon in California, and then out of nowhere he fell through a hole in space and time. He woke up in another version of Earth. He was in a hospital bed, and there was a man named Jonas sitting next to him in the bed. And then Jonas started to give him the rundown on interdimensional travel. Through their discussions, they started to talk about music, and it turns out
share that I'm live on your Facebook and stuff still before
tunes. James Richard even brought back a cassette tape with the music of this living Beatles band. The cassette was called Everyday Chemistry, and it sounds like he just spliced together some Beatles songs and some Wings songs, but who knows, maybe this is what the Beatles would have sounded like if two of their members never died. And number 8, we have the Dobbses. Frank and Althea Dobbs were the leading minds in a new scientific practice called chaos science. It's the idea that consciousness could possibly be its own universe. They started to pick up some steam, and some other people decided to join their cause. They moved the team to a ghost town of Ong's Hat, New Jersey. Here they started to do research on interdimensional travel. I have to say, this does sound like a cult. Well, cult or not, they claim that they've succeeded in this practice. It's said that they found a wormhole which led them to a parallel version of Earth that never had been consumed by humans, and they chose to stay there. Considering the state of the planet right now, I would say this was a very good choice. At number 7, we have Whose Life Is This? You go to sleep a happy lady, and then you wake up and you're back with your ex-boyfriend? This sounds like a bender that you wish didn't happen, but for Lorena Garcia, this wasn't that at all. She woke up in her bed and she noticed a bunch of minor details were off. The setup of her room was a little off, and her sheets weren't the ones that she loved. Never mess with a lady's sheets. Then her ex-boyfriend walked into the room, but the crazy thing is, it wasn't her ex. They never broke up and they were still together. After this, she was like, okay, this is crazy, but I gotta go to work. So she went into her job, and she had a different job and a different boss who was someone she had never seen before, and she couldn't explain any of this. At number 6, we have Riverside Down. I don't know how you can go through an interdimensional portal without noticing it, but apparently this happens quite a bit. Carol Chase McElhenney was driving through Cali when she decided to take a short trip to her hometown of Riverside to see how things never really change. It can always be a little bit of a shock to go back to where you grew up, but this time things had changed a lot. Actually, everything had changed. The layout of the town was the same, but all the houses were different. The home she grew up in was warped. She was concerned that she had taken a wrong turn, but she found her old school which she went to, which was exactly where it should be. But then she started noticing strange figures around the town, people who looked a little off and definitely creepy. This was enough for her, and then she sped out of there. She returned to this town in a later date, and everything was back to normal, but she never forgot that time she slipped into a parallel dimension. At number 5, we have Interdimensional Cabin. No, this isn't another movie pitch from me, although this would have been an amazing movie pitch. There's a cabin in the Markawasi Stone Forest that is said to open up a door to a different time. Some women were hiking through the woods, and they saw some people outside this cabin dancing and lighting torches. Before you run away in fear, they weren't lighting torches to get all angry mob, but it was because they didn't have any sort of modern technology. They were all dressed in clothes that looked like they were pulled out of the Spanish Golden Age. The people dancing eventually entered the cabin, and the women went to investigate. One of the women walked halfway into the cabin, and her friend grabbed her and pulled her out. She immediately fell to the ground and couldn't move half of her body. Half of her body was paralyzed. The women ran away, and some people speculate that the reason the woman couldn't move half of her body after she entered the cabin is because she entered another dimension halfway and then was pulled out, which caused her body to get all screwed up. I don't really know if there's good science on this. At number 4, we have What Road Is This? The crazy thing about all these stories is how calm people are when they get transported to another world. Pedro Olivier Olivia Ramirez was driving through Spain and was headed to the town of Alaca de Guadaira. This was a drive he could do on autopilot. He had done it so many times before, but this time something went terribly wrong. He made a usual turn that should have led him down a small road, but he was suddenly on a 6-lane highway. He didn't recognize any of this at all, and everywhere around him there was these buildings that seemed like they were pulled from another world. Eventually he pulled off the highway, and to his surprise he ended up in Alaca de Guadaira. He tried going back to find this highway, but he never could. See, if that was me, I would be swerving all over the road and then would pass out from a panic attack. At number 3, we have a wrong turn. When you go on a road trip, you probably want to go cross country, not cross dimensions. There were 4 girls driving through a desert in Nevada, and out of nowhere, things started to get a little strange. They saw street signs that had an unknown language on them. They didn't have any sort of markings of any alphabet that any of them could recognize. So what's the best course of action when you end up in a strange neighborhood? Well, you ask for directions, you silly little goose.
Yeah,
so they saw some dudes hanging out in what looked like to be a truck stop diner, and they drove beside them to ask them where they were. But then things got strange. These guys started to freak out, and it didn't take long for the women to realize that these guys were humanoids, but definitely not human. So they hightailed it out of there. This is when they started to get followed by some oval-shaped vehicles. The girl driving slammed on the gas, and she must have pushed it up to 88, because then they were back in Nevada, and the oval pursuers had vanished. At number 2, we have the Children of Woolpit. This story is bonkers. We're going back to the 12th century. Everyone in the town of Woolpit was chilling and doing a bunch of farm stuff and just trying to survive. You know what it was like back then. Then 2 kids came walking into town. They had green skin and spoke a gibberish language. The people took these kids in because they're kids and they seemed like they were terrified. They fed them, but the kids would only eat beans. Then not long after this, the boy of the 2 died. But the girl lived on. She eventually learned how to speak English and told everyone that she was from another world, somewhere where the sun never rose and it was perpetually twilight. She said she was on her father's farm and heard a crash, and then she was in Woolpit. She never found out where she was from, but she did eventually settle down and start a family. And for the number 1 spot, we have Shadow of a Doubt. Interdimensional travel is apparently impossible because space-time bends matter and light. But because of this bending of light, there is a chance that we could see shadows from another dimension. This could have been what happened to a young woman who was living in Massachusetts. She said one night she saw a shadowy figure appear in a room out of her closet. The figure moved close to her and then was followed by another. And then another. Some of them were wearing strange clothes, and one of them seemed to be wearing glasses. Then they started to surround her, and she did the smart thing and hightailed it out of her room. Of course, you're not going to stick around with the ghost things. There could be the chance that these were some sort of beings peeking in from another dimension.
Coming in number 10, we have the invisible car crash. Now, there are tons of ways to explain real-life glitches. When you see someone lag on camera, that could have just been the recording. When you see a plane stalled in the sky, like we had on our last video, that could be explained through some clever editing. But I don't really know how you fake a car crash like the one I'm about to show you. Yeah, you guys just saw what I just saw, right? That was a car that was crashing into nothing. There was a car that was zooming along the highway, and then it smacked into an invisible barrier. Now, this could have been some hole in the road that was angled so perfectly that the driver and the camera couldn't see it. Now, that is possible, but highly unlikely. How could something that thin and small be strong enough to cause a moving car that's going about 60 kilometers an hour to stop in its tracks? Was there some sort of invisible force field there that was left on by accident, or could this just be someone spending hours editing something strange to put out as disinformation to make us all very confused? Either way, I would be pissed if I was the owner of that car. You don't do anything wrong, and then something invisible causes your car to be a write-off? Is that even covered under your insurance?
Next, at number 9, disappearing texts. Random user on Reddit shared this experience they had. Their girlfriend was working at a restaurant that night and sent them a text that read, "Hey, I'm picking you up food when I'm done, so don't eat anything. Love you." And this message appeared during an emergency broadcast alert and then disappeared right after the alert. This seemed odd, so the person restarted their phone and went to go pick up their girlfriend from the restaurant. When they picked her up, she said they should go somewhere to eat, which threw them off because didn't she just say she was grabbing them food? But she said her phone was off the whole time she was at work. Never sent a text. The author of the story said they saw her turn on her phone as if it was off the whole time, and there was no evidence of a text sent. But
The text they received came from the girlfriend's number. So their explanation? It must have been sent from an alternate universe. A parallel one where their girlfriend was going to get them food, and this was just a glitch in the Matrix that disappeared once it slipped out. And texts aren't the only thing to slip through the Matrix.
Coming in number 8, we have teleporting, time traveling, or NPC. I would imagine that sometime in the future we will lock down teleportation. I don't know if time travel is on the table, but who knows? If we went back 100 years and got someone to eat Korean fried chicken, they might have an overdose from all the flavor. But if people are working on it, you would imagine it would take some time to work out all the kinks. In this next clip, we might be seeing the early stages of people glitching reality so they can teleport. You see that massive truck had to swerve out of the way so that they didn't crash into that lady. Some random woman appeared out of nowhere, and it looks like she has a perfectly clean lab coat on. I mean, I don't know how someone would end up walking around in the middle of the highway miles away from any town, but they usually don't dress like they came right out of the lab. She seems so calm even though she was almost hit by a truck. Usually when a 16-wheeler has to swerve out of the way so it doesn't crash into me, I wet my jeans just a little bit. But she's just strolling like she knew she was going to be safe, or she's a poorly programmed NPC. Next on the list we have Brady Fiegel Squared. There are a lot of people in this world who say they have found their twin. I'm looking at you, David Diggs. If I get tagged in one more picture of you, I'm gonna have to chase you down and take a side-by-side picture so people know we're not the same person. But even though David Diggs and I kinda look the same, we have nowhere close to the same similarities as Brady Fiegel and Brady Fiegel. For one, both these guys have the exact same name. On top of that, they both play professional baseball. On top of that, they are both left-handed pitchers. This seems pretty rare, and you would expect this to be the point where the similarities end. Well, guess what? There's more. For one, they both look almost identical. They both have had the same surgery from the same doctor, and they even dress similar, wearing the same glasses. It would seem that the random person generator that populates this planet with people might have glitched and made 2 copies of the same dude. People thought that they might have been long-lost twins that were separated at birth. A DNA test showed that that wasn't true, but they did have the same German ancestry. Coming in next on the list, we have the cat reflection. I don't know what kind of software is going into making the mirrors in our giant simulation world, but it would seem that this is a place ripe for glitches. Oh, and just so we're clear, I'm not a believer in simulation theory. I just like playing along with the theme for this list. But even though I think that everything can be explained logically, this next clip is a little trippy. The CPU that is in charge of getting everything running must have been putting the computing power somewhere else when this went off. I mean, that would be a good sign to tell if you are an important person if you think simulation theory is real. Like, if this is indeed a simulation, I'm going to play with this idea for a moment, and there are a bunch of glitches around you, that would mean that the universal computing power is being used somewhere else on more important and interesting people. So, if you see those glitches, that's your sign to step up your game because your life is boring. Next on the list we have Mark Zuck is a Matrix programmer. If there's anyone that could be a lizard person, or a robot, or an alien, or some sort of simulation-based software person that has been put into the world to control us and cause havoc, it would be Mark Zuckerberg. And there have been several moments where people have caught this poor excuse for an alien trying to be a human acting weird. But this one has to be my favorite.
You need to focus and try not to let stuff bother you as much as possible. But it is going to bother you because you're human, and I was human. I am human. Still,
Zuck was caught red-handed saying that he wasn't a human. That has to be one of the most obvious glitches ever. The programmers would have been like, who's in charge of writing the script for Zuckerberg, and why did you make him act like a robot and make references to not being human because you're blowing our cover big time? I mean, let's say in the next few years there's a massive revolution and we get into a bunch of secret files about which famous people living among us are aliens and which ones are humans. I would be more surprised to find out that this guy is actually fully human. Next on the list, we have the rain spot. I mean, we all hate bad weather, so I think many of us would prefer if we could condense it into one spot and have everything else nice all the time. Well, I guess there must have been a trial run for some new rain patches because that's what we got here. would seem that for some reason the clouds in that area have glitched out and the rain is pouring down in only one spot. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Now that has to be some sort of glitch or the plot to a children's book called The Loneliest Rain Cloud. A book about a cloud that is rainy all the time, but all the other clouds around him are nice, so he has no friends. And he travels around everywhere trying to make friends, but everyone runs from him because they don't want to get wet. Someone get my publicist on the phone because I have a book to write. Next on the list, guys, we have the smartphone time traveler. One of the wildest things ever caught on camera is the footage from a Mike Tyson fight that looks like there's someone filming the fight in the background. The reason that this is so weird is because the footage is from 1995, and even though there were some phones back then that could have been considered smartphones, there was nothing released that had a camera on it. That wouldn't be released for another 5 years. And when you look at the footage, it seems like that phone is a very modern smartphone. Now, this could have been some device that simply looks like a phone, and people have been making the case to say that this is in fact a smartphone, so they can argue that time travel is real, but really, we have no idea what happened here. We have no idea who was recording this Mike Tyson fight with this mysterious device. Next on the list, guys, we have a plane vanishes. Now, there have been a lot of reports of all sorts of stuff like this. Like, apparently, all of the alien stuff that happened in Roswell, New Mexico, that was all faked by the government because they were testing out experimental aircrafts, and they decided that making people think that aliens were real was safer than telling them what the military was up to. So what you're about to see might be some secret government aircraft caught on camera, or it might be a glitch. I mean, you all saw what I just saw, right? There was a plane there, and then it was gone. Everyone was focused on it. It was in the sky, and then it blinked out of existence like half the people in Avengers Infinity War. Also, random question for the comments. Would you rather be one of the people who blinked out of existence when Thanos snapped his fingers and then came back 3 years later to a whole new world? Or would you have rather been there the whole time and lived through the whole thing and saw the world post-snap? Well, whoever was on the plane seems like they didn't have a choice in disappearing because now they are for sure gone. Unless the sky is all a massive projection and that was just a glitch on one of the screens. And coming in at the #1 spot, we have the Pope vanishes. Now, I will start off by saying I have no idea what the Pope does and what his powers are. Can he fly? Can he control the weather? Does he have telekinesis? I never went to church, so I don't know. So the clip that went viral of him vanishing about a year ago might be one of his holy powers, or it was a glitch that no one was supposed to see. Let's take a look. That was something that was seen from the Pope's balcony as he was addressing people about the COVID-19 pandemic. After his speech was done, he just vanished, and there were several news outlets that showed the exact same thing. So this wasn't just a broadcast that screwed up. Some say this might have been a hologram of the Pope because he was actually isolating somewhere and didn't want to catch the virus. I mean, we know that hologram tech is real. Most of us have seen that massive Tupac hologram that came out years ago. And if anyone has access to the latest and greatest hologram tech, it has to be.
Starting off this countdown, we have the warning. This individual actually received a signal from his parallel universe self, and had he not, he might have actually died. So the narrator, who wants to remain anonymous, let's call him Robbie, was out walking one day when he saw a version of himself across the street. At first, he thought he was just seeing things, but surely, right across the street was himself, just staring at him. He was dressed in identical clothing and everything. Robbie stopped and stared at him when all of a sudden his twin yelled out, "Run!" At that moment, a car came hurtling towards Robbie's twin. He saw himself get hit by the car, so he turned and he ran. And it's a good thing that he did, because seconds later, that same car came hurtling towards him. He looked back, and Robbie in the car that hit him was gone. But there was a real accident that occurred right in front of his eyes. Had he not run, he would have been hit and killed. So he believes that his parallel universe self saved himself from dying. In our 9th spot today, we have the reverse signals. In 2016 and in 2018, scientists in Antarctica discovered radio pulses being emitted from the ground. The radio pulses detected high-energy neutrinos and were discovered by the Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna, otherwise known as ANITA. But here's the weird thing. The signals were coming up out of the Earth and heading towards the sky. Since the signals were coming up from the Earth instead of down from space, people believe that they may be traveling back in time and therefore from a parallel universe. For this universe, the Big Bang represents the end and not the beginning. Coming in at number 8, we have Euronymous. This story really freaking gives me the creeps. Basically, a Norwegian black metal fan believes that he's stuck in the wrong universe. So the story was posted by I Love Transylvania on Reddit. They asked for help and advice. It all started when he woke up and found out that his favorite musician, Euronymous, had died. But not recently. He died in 1993. Immediately, he thought that this was some kind of joke because just recently he had seen him in concert. The year he saw him was 2013, which is 20 years after his death, which is physically impossible. Not only that, but in the early 2000s, he bumped into him in a shop and even bought a record from him there. Not only that, but he can't seem to get in contact with any of his friends. He tries calling and texting, but their numbers are all out of service. So this guy either thinks he's going insane, or he somehow got transported to another universe, our current one, in which Euronymous passed away in 1993.
I need these bets to go through, man. All I need is Chicago Bulls and Atlanta Braves to come through.
A perfect example of some accidental dimension jumping. Now, you might be sick of hearing me talk about this story, but it literally blows my mind. It's one of my favorite stories, so I'm sharing it again. For those of you who don't know, in July of 1954, a well-dressed man arrived at the Haneda Airport in Tokyo, Japan. When he was questioned at customs, he said he was from a place called Torrid. However, as we know, Torrid is not a real place.
Good looking,
so immediately the officers were like, red flag, detain him. Later, he was placed in a hotel and was monitored by two guards. In the hotel, his room was placed high up.
If you want to chat about anything, whether it be what's going on in these videos, they were talking about some crazy shit.
How he managed to escape is physically impossible.
Oh, fuck it, shit. Just how niggas
they
were.
Some people think that Torrid is a real place.
How they say nowadays, this is a safe place.
And this man somehow
How
passed
did
through a
they?
parallel
Oh, yeah, we scored.
dimension and
Thank
ended
you.
up at the airport.
Thank you.
Others think that it's all just a made-up legend. If so, the
why
story
y'all
gets
foul?
international news and wind up in the papers. I don't know. It's up to
You
you.
gonna miss 'cause
You
his feet
believe
stink.
whatever, but I think it's freaking creepy. Coming in at number 6, we have the parallel drivers.
Look, I'm on
You're
the
about to
top.
notice
I'm
a
not
trend
paying
here. A number of
attention.
parallel universe stories feature cars and car accidents. It's quite weird. Like this one. So this next guy was visiting his grandparents when he was almost hit by a car. So he was in a car park when a car nearly hit him and another car. As the car passed him, he got a look at the passengers. And that's when he knew that something was very off. In the car, there were 3 passengers, a woman, her daughter, and a male driver.
Trying to game and watch these bets, man.
Looking forward with
Shit's
no
crazy.
emotion on their face whatsoever. It looked as if they were all just zoned out or in another world. Maybe quite literally. As the car continued
Alright,
driving
yes, let's
by,
go. We
he
still up
realized
and we
that
got
it was his
possession.
family's car.
Let's go,
Freaking out,
man.
thinking that their car had
Take
been
it
stolen,
easy.
he ran to his family, only to find the car parked
Just take
in
it
the
easy.
residence driveway.
Even try to walk
Now, I
him
don't
down.
have an explanation for this one.
Alright.
I really don't. But it seems like the people in that car were from another dimension and were unaware that they were appearing elsewhere. Seems like the 2 universes might have merged for that second. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with deja vu. After all this time, scientists don't have a
Everybody
clear
done
explanation
experienced
for
a form of deja vu.
They believe that everyday deja vu experiences might be linked to the memories in our temporal area, but they have
Or
yet
how
to prove
about
this
memories
or come
that's
up
tied
with
to the
any
Akashic
other
records?
explanations. Others believe that
Call them
deja
what you
vu
will.
occurs when different universes are in sync for a short period of time. For example, maybe in one universe you picked up a bottle of wine to pour yourself a
do your
glass. Maybe
job.
a different version of yourself in another universe you picked up a beer. This happened at the same time, so you're in sync for that moment. And that's when you get that feeling, like, didn't I just do this? It's because your other self did something similar. Coming in at number 4, we have precognitive dreams. Precognitive dreams are dreams that can predict the future, or they can provide you with information that you wouldn't have otherwise known. There are a number of people that have had this happen to them, including myself. I've had dreams and then the next day it's come true, and there's no possible way for me to have known that this was going to happen. In fact, we have a whole series on dreams that have predicted the future, so if you want, check that out as well. Anyways, one theory is that these dreams are signals from your other self in a different universe. Maybe something is about to happen in your life and has already happened in their life. or they're sending you a signal in your sleep to warn you about upcoming dangers. Moving on to number 3, we have the change of route. A couple of years ago, the next narrator was walking to work one day when they all of a sudden had an urge to take a different path. Every day, they took the same route. But
Y'all
today,
take
they
it all. I
decided
know
to go
taking
down
it,
a different way.
taking a win
So
from
they
the
turned
foul
and
shots,
went
you want to call it what you will,
now,
but
any
shit, I
normal
would
person
take
would
it.
be like, no, don't go down that creepy dark alley, you're gonna get mugged or killed. But something was telling this guy that he needed to go down that way.
There's 3 seconds
he did.
left.
And
Come
that's
on,
when he
come on,
zoned
come
out.
on, come on,
He
come on,
said that
baby.
his mind went scrambled.
Come on,
He also said, and I
baby.
quote, I felt like I didn't have
What?
a body anymore, just that I was a semi-conscious entity floating through some weird dimension. All of a sudden, in the array of different colors and shapes, a vision
double
came
overtime?
to me. It was a bunch of strange-looking people that, in my mind, resembled
That's
businessmen
crazy,
in suits. They looked startled and panicked that I could see them. One of the people made a quick movement, and everything turned black. Then, when he snapped out of this, he found himself on a completely different street, back on his way to work. I don't have an explanation for this. Honestly, it seems like for a split second he was looking into another universe or something, though. In our second spot, we have the close
do me
call.
like
Several years
that.
ago, this guy worked at Little Caesars Pizza. He worked as one of those sign spinners, you know, to get people into the store. One day,
Double
while sign
overtime,
spinning,
that's
he saw a van
crazy.
heading straight at him.
Nah,
It
but see, they
drove
gonna get a
over
little
the
extra
curb
win
and
now.
hit
They ain't
him
playing with these
directly.
boys.
He felt it crush him against the street post. Then everything turned black. All of a sudden, he gasped and he was awake and still alive. He's still on the corner and he's still holding his sign. No car was there, he was alive. Since he was shaken from the experience, he decided to go inside the store for his break. As he walked away, he heard a loud crash. As he turned around, he saw the same van crash into the street post where he had been standing. So maybe in another universe, he died from that car crash. In this universe, he survived. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the portal. There's a cabin in the Markawazi Stone Forest in Peru that apparently is a ticket to another dimension. This story was told by a woman who one day was out camping in the forest with her friends. That's when they heard music coming from another area in the forest, so they decided to follow the sound and check it out. Then they came across a small stone cabin. It was illuminated by torches. What was weird is that they could see in through the windows, and the people inside were wearing 17th century fashion. The women, being curious, decided to go check it out. In fact, one of the friends was a little too curious, and she tried entering the cabin. She stepped foot inside when her friend pulled her away. Instantly, half of her body became paralyzed. It was the half that entered the cabin. To this day, she still remains paralyzed on that side of her body. So it's believed that this cabin would have taken them to another dimension. Since half of her body entered another dimension and then was yanked out, it threw off her nervous system, resulting in her partial paralysis.
Alright, starting at number 10, unsanctioned connection. Reddit user Stars and Severance shared an experience they had when they were younger.
About to
When
wild
they
out
were
right
12,
now.
they got their first phone for
Take
Christmas.
time.
Then, one night over the
Man, I'm about
holidays,
to
they had a
wild
crazy
out.
realistic dream. In the dream, they went to a girl's house making line faces out of construction paper. And the girl in this very vivid dream had long red hair and looked nothing like anyone they knew. Then, the next day after this dream, they got a text from an unknown number. It said something along the lines of, "You'll never guess who I am." And then after some back and forth guessing, thinking it's one of their friends, the number sends a picture of a lion plate, just like in the dream. Then the next photo is a selfie, and the person texting had long red hair. Then, through other texting and a one-sided game of 20 questions, it turns out this girl with the red hair knows all about the person receiving the text messages. So then they text for about 3 days before the girl texting them said, "Lose my number, forget me." She stated, "They are mad because I reached out to you." And who's they? Well, the user who shared this story didn't question the arguments of the girl and deleted the number in the text, never hearing from the girl again. But this leads me to think. From a dream to reality, this girl appeared. One explanation is a parallel universe. Think about it. Dreams can sure be wild and weird, but what about those times it feels just like real life? Can that be another universe trying to make a connection without freaking us out? Maybe. Alright, let's look at another text.
Coming at number 9, we have sailing in the sky. If you have it in your mind that you will never reach the level of wealth to afford a sailboat, well, let me tell you that there's a whole other level of wealth that we have no idea about. There is a class of people who have been taking their boats to the skies. Are we all seeing that right? Now, I have no idea how reflections off the water will affect your camera and how we'll pick that up, but that looks like someone got their boat to fly through the sky at a very reasonable pace. I mean, that boat is just cruising along, not too fast or slow. Sky sailing is a brand new thing, and this guy has already mastered it. But how on earth is that happening? Is there some new boat-shaped plane that we don't know about? I mean, that does sound like something that Elon Musk would make. Tesla has a car that looks like a tank, and now they have a plane that looks like a boat.
Next, at number 8, an unexplainable photo. So, Reddit user Jake Venom had a scare 7 years ago when he found a photo on his phone he couldn't explain. He was making some iced tea with a new tea maker and sent a photo to his buddy's group chat when the previous photo in his phone caught his eye. The previous photo was supposed to be the screenshot from Twitter he sent to a friend last night, but it wasn't. It was a blurry photo of what he recognized as the kitchen of his childhood house. But he hadn't been to that house. He sent the Twitter screenshot before he went to bed, and then he sent the tea maker photo when he was making tea in the morning. So this obviously freaked him out. He said he kept having a weird feeling when he was looking at the photo, and there was no reasonable explanation for it, so he ended up deleting it to stop feeling that uneasy feeling. But another Jake Venom in another timeline still lives in that house and took a photo in his kitchen that never showed up on his phone. I'm thinking it could be these alternate parallel universes must be like so missed. And so these have been digital so far, but what about a person who says they are from a place that no one knows exists or doesn't exist? At number 7, from Lexaria. Back in 1851, a man who called himself Jofar Voren, or Joseph Voren, was found as he was wandering a German village. Joseph was speaking in broken German, but also spoke and wrote in unknown languages that he called Laxarian and Abramian. He said he was in Europe to find his long-lost brother, but he suffered in a shipwreck, as he came from Lexaria, which is in an area of Sakria. Now, if that doesn't ring a bell in your head, no, it didn't ring any bells for any of the officials trying to help this man out. He couldn't find where he was from. Any maps or globes didn't match what he knew. He called the 5 great continents of Earth Sakria, Alfar, Astar, Ulslar, and Yurplar, which doesn't match any of ours. People think he somehow fell into our universe from one much different from our own and much further away from where he anticipated to find his brother, but what do you think? But next, more of something different. At number 6, experiencing different days. This one comes from Stewie2Griffin34 on Reddit, who is watching another one of our parallel universe videos a couple months ago. It got them thinking of a weird day they themselves had. Their friend Kate, on break from her way to detention, said that their friend Nick wasn't in that day. But when they both got home, they got texts from both Nick and Kate saying that no, Nick was in school and detention and everything that day. And then Kate said that she hadn't told them that Nick wasn't in because she never took a break outside detention. So then they were all confused. And then on top of that, Nick said that he saw them go into the library that day and was at school, saying the user who posted this was just acting distant. Then the next day, the user, trying to figure out what was happening, tried to get other opinions, and Nick's friends said, no, Nick wasn't in the day before. So was this a prank or different people experiencing different days? And I swear I remember when people tell me something specific, and then they say, no, that never happened, and I get confused, so, what is the truth? On to number 5, missing graveyard. Reddit user City Loves Chew says her mom was the one to have the trippy experience in this one. The mom in question was traveling with a friend in Old Lyme, Connecticut to a beach they often went to, Hawk's Nest Beach. They had free time one day and explored the area and ended up finding a cool cemetery called the Lord's Cemetery with a big red gate. They checked it out, took some cool pictures, and then left. No biggie. But the next day, they couldn't find the same spot again. They asked people in town, police officers, everybody, and no one had heard of it. They tried to find it in the years following, but couldn't find it, even with the help of Google Maps. Plus, the photos they took were gone. No explanation, which, when you think about it, is a grave experience from a parallel universe. And okay, that was a bad pun. We'll move on to the next one. Next is number 4, from Denny's to Penny's. So, what if, suddenly, something so basic and normal to you was changed without question, and everyone then accepted it as the norm? Well, this happened to Reddit user is_emo. Back when they were a kid, they went to Denny's pretty often. So they were kind of shaken when one day, when they were young, their dad shook them awake and said, hey, we're heading to Penny's. And so they were all like, you mean Denny's, right? And their dad was like, no, Penny's. So they kind of accepted this, maybe it's a joke, and they roll up, but the yellow sign that's supposed to say Denny's is changed to Penny's. So now this kid is freaking out, but trying to keep cool, hide it, and Yeah, you might be thinking this was just a one-day thing, maybe it was just shaking up, but no. They passed by the sign every day to school for a month, and all their friends at school kept saying it had always been pennies anytime this person asked. But then, a month later, boom, Denny's again. So the kid asks his dad if it's changed, and their dad looks confused and asks, what do you mean?
3-point score by
cool,
Chicago. Let's go.
Shook them up for a while. Shook them up until they heard about possible parallel universes, and then it made total sense to them. What do you think Denny's is called in other universes? That's what I want to know. But anyways, the realization that there might be other universes doesn't come to everybody. At number 3, Guardian Angle. Now, a 28-year-old in Washington, D.C. named Lindsay got a scare from an unknown number. Whoever it was had bad spelling and used shortened text speak, sending sayings such as, "Lindsay, I see you," with Lindsay misspelled and the words all in letter form. But this wasn't what scared her, though, even though there was one text that said, "I'm your guardian angle." What scared her is when she started getting texts about what she was doing currently, things that could only be described if someone was watching her. Talking about her watching TV and saying they were standing right next to Lindsay. Lindsay had enough of this, it was freaking her out, and she called the number that she got from the landline, but the line said the number wasn't in service. Then the number texted her saying, "Why did you have to do that? And you know what you did." And so this was enough for Lindsay to get really shaken, so she got the police to help her investigate, but nothing came out of it. Now, what I think is this was a trickster from a parallel universe playing a prank on her. But what do you think it could be? Something a little more paranormal? But moving on to number 2, unsent text. Sometimes the story doesn't come from the person who gets the wild text, but the person who gets the reaction to it. Reddit user Trodat5204 had her sister call her out of the blue over text she allegedly sent her. Her sister said she sent a text saying, "Hey," insert some unusual pet names she sometimes calls her sister, "I'm in this city now. I'm scared, but it's okay and it's safe here. Your sister." So the person who posted this obviously censored their information, so that's why it reads kind of weird and I keep doing brackets. But anyways, her sister is calling her to demand to know why she's in a different city, why she got this text from a different number, and wants to know what's going on. So the person who got called clarifies the situation for her sister, and they call this other number together. But it just keeps on ringing. They couldn't reach what they thought to be a reasonable explanation, so the Reddit post says it could be maybe 3 things. 1, a coincidence. 2, a joke. Or 3, a parallel universe. Someone in another universe was scared and lost, but the text got sent to the wrong sister in the wrong universe. But on to number 1, alternate universe FaceTime. Reddit user Anonymous5000 left a story of what they described as a glitch in the Matrix story on the comments of another post. What they experienced they could only describe as a FaceTime call from another universe. This user is the father of a 6-year-old daughter, and they keep in touch over FaceTime when she stays at her mom's house. While he's talking to her daughter, having a long conversation over FaceTime, when she starts asking if her mommy and daddy are going to be together forever. He then gets confused because he's been separated from her mom for 3 years at that point. But she goes on to explain that, no, they're together, and that when he comes home, they all watch TV together. So she keeps talking until the reception cuts it off, and he calls back, kind of confused, and then his daughter is in different clothes. He laughs it off and asked if she hung up to change, and then this guy said, his daughter said, "I never hung up. You just called me, Dad." So he says, "No, we were just talking on the phone," but she says, "No, they weren't." So then, as I would too, this guy freaked out. This Reddit user says the other call must have been from a parallel universe where the 2 parents were still together, and the guy gets the chills thinking about how it could have happened. Imagine the alternate universe daughter who's thinking her dad is rambling on about not being with her mom. Kinda wild.
Can I ask you something?
Hold on, let me.
Okay.
Miscarrying in her womb, it seems like it could be a world ender. Coming into number 3, we have SCP-3003. Let's cut to the chase here. SCP-3003 is an Earth-sized planet orbiting a star 208 light years away from Earth. The planet is
dirt
infected
over your
with
deck.
beetles
I mean,
that
slightly.
act as
You don't want to smudge
parasites on
dirt in,
humans,
fuck
allowing
cards
the
up, you
beetles
feel
to
me? But
control the
you want it
population.
to
The
wash
planet
over.
also contains
You get
a
what I'm saying?
device that, if
And then,
activated, could open a
if
portal
it's
between
fire, you don't want to put the cards in
SCP-3003
fire,
and
but over
Earth.
heat.
So,
You know what I'm
should that
saying?
open up?
Cleanse it with the heat.
Hello, people controlling
I
parasites.
mean, water,
coming
you don't
at
actually
us,
have to
trying
dip it
infect
in
us.
the
I don't like
water,
beetles
I mean,
anyway.
but like,
Coming into
give
number
it a
2,
cool
we
it
have
embrace. You know what I'm saying? Like,
SCP-2317. SCP-2317 is
it
an
depends
old
on which
19th
instance
century
you're
wooden
burning,
door
that the
originally
instant have to
constructed as a
correlate with
basement
the
door from a
with the element.
Massachusetts brownstone. These days, though, it serves as a door to another reality. Cool. The only thing is, though, in the other reality, there is a 200-kilometer tall humanoid that is known as the Planet Eater, or SCP-2317-JK, who wants to, eat the planet, destroy the world. The good news is the Planet Eater has been contained by 7 strong ancient bones, but the bad news is that 6 of them are broken, leaving just one between us and unleashing the beast that wants to destroy the planet by gobbling it up into his big beastly belly. Some speculate that 2317 is an incantation
They about to work, bro. I know they finna work. They ain't gonna let me go out like Willie Lumpkin. They ain't gonna do that. I've been hollering at them, like I said, I am, so I will.
Number 1, we have Mr. Wondertainment. What we do know is that the elusive Mr. W has created 20 SCPs, including Miss Sweetie, who was at number 10. Indeed, the man, if he is a man or even a human, created the 20 collectible little misters. I'll give you a quick run through of all of them. Mr. Chameleon. He is a sentient entity made of protons who can match its background. Mr. Headless is a headless man who can still perform tasks that usually require a head. Mr. Forgetful is a person with a peanut allergy. He's a humanoid with amnesia. Mr. Shapey is a transforming morphing creature. Mr. Soap is a humanoid that exudes a soapy liquid and can float humans in bubbles, which sounds kind of fun. Mr. Hungry is a humanoid who needs to eat 2,000 calories every 2 hours. If not, he'll lose it and start consuming matter around him. Mr. Brass, I'd watch out for him. He's an automaton, a humanoid made of brass who was mistaken as a god by a cult before it ended up in containment. Then there's Mr. Hot, who has a weird ability to predict if a person has a child,
just had
and
a
also
good
know
little
what
run.
product that child
But
desires
watch,
the
my
most.
dog's about to show out.
Miss Sweetie,
They about to
she's the
show
only
out.
female. We talked about
Top
her,
of the ninth, they
turning
about
men
to
into
show
candy,
out.
then controlling them, also creepy. Mr. Life and Death is an SCP that goes through the entire cycle of life and death every 75 minutes, which sounds exhausting. Mr. Fish is a humanoid just like you and I, except he has a head of a fish, which is super creepy. Mr. Moon is a man whose face appears and disappears along with the lunar cycle. Mr. Laugh is a clown that makes you laugh so hard that you can't breathe and you die. The discontinued and mysterious Mr. Red, I don't know much about him at all, to be honest. Then there's Mr. Money, who trades himself for human possessions. There's Mr. Lost. He's a free SCP who simply wanders the earth. There's Mr. Mad, who actually does seem criminally insane. Mr. Scary, who, get this, is a partially submerged steel structure with a large saltwater reservoir, who corrodes people on sight. Mr. Stripe has the bath.
Why are so many businesses using Snapchat ads? Let's ask Playbite.
We realized there was a big overlap between Snapchat users and our target audience of young gamers.
Snapchat is the most effective way for your business to reach Gen Z and millennials. They control a massive $5 trillion in spending power, and are 34% more likely to buy something after seeing it on Snapchat.
With the help of Snapchat, we've been able to reach our monthly active user and revenue goals every single month.
If you like Playbite, click the button to learn more about how Snapchat ads can help grow your business.
Get these motherfuckers out, they gotta go. It's old boy test. Let's go.
What were you doing? You're 3 hours late.
Dad, you don't understand. The car was busted.
Knock them out.
So we had to shred.
Ability to turn people into stripes. And finally, there is Mr. Lie, but we aren't supposed to know about him. Whew. So, what on earth could someone want with compiling this collection of life-size, living, breathing odds and sods? They all have a slight underlying theme of consumerism, and also, how on earth can someone create an SCP? Let me know. Mr. Tesla did it with the help of a mysterious entity. Some speculate that Dr. Wondertainment is that entity, or perhaps could be an entity from the Church
Get
of
him
the
out of
Broken
here.
God. Others speculate that Mr. Wondertainment is the creator of all SCPs out there of all time, or maybe is an incantation of the Scarlet King. And God, I've gone cross-eyed. This is simply too much to think about.
Number 10, SCP-096 Shy Guy. This story was uploaded
Get
to
him
YouTube
out of here,
about a
like I
group of
said.
friends
This
who
man's
went up to a
keep
cabin
banging
for a
too.
weekend.
But I
You know,
told
like
you,
a guy's
top of the ninth,
weekend, just some
3
tunes,
scores.
some
Atlanta
beers, and
Braves,
some
we're not
supernatural
playing.
creatures
What
that'll
are you
rip your
talking about?
body to shreds. Not really, but that's what they got into.
You're not
When the group of
playing.
guys got up there, it was already the evening. The sun was going down, but they wanted to do a quick check around the
Atlanta
area
just
just
called
to
me
see
and
what
say,
was
yo,
up.
hey, yo,
They
what's
got to a cliff
what's
where
wrong
they
with
could
him?
see down to some railroad tracks.
What's
They
wrong
saw
with
a
him, man?
crouched next to the tracks,
Ain't know
and
what he
it
was
seemed like
fucking
he
with?
was hurt. They called out to him, but the man wouldn't respond with words. He just kept making this gurgling sound. The crouched man started to crawl towards them, and then this 8-foot-tall, hairless figure, naked, long,
maybe.
thin limbs, stepped out,
Iglesias
grabbed
replaces
men, and
Johnson.
pulled him into a
Oh,
bush. They wanted to go
okay.
down and help, but they were too terrified. Number 9, SCP-902. What's in the box? SCP-902 is a lead box that seems to resemble some sort of military ammunition box. It's about the size of a person's head. It's very aged and rusted on the outside. If you open the box, there's absolutely nothing inside, but you'll hear a ticking noise. It is said that anyone who has encountered this SCP hears the ticking noise and immediately becomes obsessed with it. They believe that they have to destroy the box as soon as the ticking noise stops. However, all the people who have been overcome by this SCP stress that the box cannot be destroyed before the ticking actually stops. It's like if you come in contact with this thing, it gets in your head and it takes you over. Number 8, SCP-682. This is a reptilian creature that is very intelligent and durable. It can regenerate its body, and any type of material it consumes, whether it's organic or inorganic, will give it energy and it will become more powerful. It can change the shape of its body at will. It's extremely fast and agile, and when this SCP was captured, it killed 6 SCP officers, and it's been terrorizing the SCP facility ever since. It seems to have a hatred for anything living. It has attempted to escape 17 times and was successful 6 of those times. Anytime it has broken loose, it needs to be put back in a containment cell. If you try to kill the SCP, you will for sure meet your end. Number 7, SCP-055. Now there have possibly been many encounters with this SCP, but no one remembers. Any encounter with this SCP, any recording, any photograph, they're all immediately forgotten. It's unknown how the SCP was required or how the containment cell that it's kept in was made. The only way people remember 055 is by discovering the dossier with all the SCP files in it. The containment cell is easily entered, and SCP seems to be non-violent. But as soon as the person who encounters it leaves, they immediately lose all knowledge of the creature. It's even said that if you read about it, you'll become very alarmed, and a few moments later, you'll completely forget it exists. Like what's happening right now. No, I'm just kidding, I remember. This could be the most dangerous SCP out there, but...
Alright, another year, another batch of 5th grade head cases. Let's just get through it.
I hope everyone's met our class pets, Leonardo and Squirtle. I'm not touching those things.
Don't they eat, sleep, and poo in the same place?
Hey, I poo where he sleeps.
But no one knows. No one remembers any of their encounters. 6, SCP-2521. This SCP is 2 times taller than the average person, coming in around 10 or 12 feet. It has long black tentacles that come off of its hands and has the ability to ghost through walls.
Now bring him out, bring him out. It's hard to yell when that bad valves in your mouth.
It
Swizzy.
seems to be relatively
Get him out. Get him out of
but
here.
if people talk or write about it for an
He said,
extended
we don't know
period
until
of
you,
time,
homie, keep
it is
banging.
reported that it will appear in front of them to gather the information about itself. Basically, it knows if you're gossiping about it, and then it wants you to know that it knows. It's kind of like a warning. But from what I've read, it seems like it enjoys hearing the information about itself. Like when it appears, this SCP is like, go on, girl.
He's gonna score
Don't
like
stop because I'm
4
here.
runs
Number
next
5,
joint. But Leonard not playing,
SCP-106.
bro.
This SCP is one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. It looks like a decomposing elderly man. It has mucus that covers its skin, and it's corrosive, and it's extremely violent. Also, anyone who comes in contact with it is attacked. It has to be kept in a lead cell. SCP-106 seems to be either dormant or in a hunting state at all times. Whenever it is in a hunting state, it will take whatever prey it has into a pocket dimension, like teleport you into a creepy meat locker. Some who are attacked by this SCP are killed, but some are kept alive and then transported into this pocket dimension. And apparently people can be sustained there for days. There's only one recorded person who came back from 106's pocket dimension, but they were completely incoherent. The transportation might have fried their mind, or maybe the storage area in the pocket dimension was too brutal to see and it melted their brain. Ooh. Number 4, SCP-087. For me, the scariest of all these things aren't the monsters or the creatures, but it's the ones that are just super freaky objects. Like SCP-087, which is just a staircase. Anyone who ventures onto this SCP has to bring a flashlight with them, because there's absolutely no lighting along the staircase. But any light too bright seems to get absorbed by the staircase. There was a team of SCP officers who once tried to venture to the bottom of 087. As they went along, they started to hear a child's crying. They came across a pale face with no pupils, which was embedded in the wall. It wasn't the source of the crying, but several SCP officers started to feel this uncomfortable paranoia, and a few fainted. Some of the people who fainted were never recovered. Like, you can't even take the stairs without worrying anymore. I'm gonna see some paranormal monster just waiting to drive me insane? I'm just trying to be healthy. Give me a break. Number 3, SCP-176. This SCP is broken up into 2 different sections. The first is a large black cube with several locks on it. It's said to be 10,000 years old. Next is what's contained inside the cube. It's a young man with gray eyes, long hair, and tan skin, and demonic tattoos all over his body. The young man will stay asleep as long as the box stays closed. If it's open, he will awaken. Anyone who encounters him, he will attempt to kill. He's very strong, agile, and can feel no pain. He's basically like a reversed version of the Doom guy. You know, Doom guy who's locked away in the box to kill all the demons? I bet as soon as you open this guy's box, a heavy metal track starts playing, and then everyone within a 10-mile radius is pretty much dead. Number 2, SCP-035. Now we move on to a creepy white porcelain mask. This mask will shift between 2 faces, comedy and tragedy, the 2 classic roles of theater. The mask constantly has a corrosive goo that leaks from it. Anything that comes in contact with this goo will start to decay. Now it has a small effect on glass, so it's kept.
Let's be honest. The rent-a-car industry is the definition of boring. Rent a car. That's why we
gonna smack them out top of the ninth.
We
like I
offer
said, they
the
about to
car.
wow
The cars you
out.
love for the prices you'll love even more. 6th, rent the car.
In a glass case. Now, if you are to come in contact with this prop, you might feel the sudden urge to wear it. Anyone who falls prey to this thing and puts the mask on will immediately start to decay and become mummified. However, they will stay animated. The mask will start controlling their body. Whoever the mask is in control of will be extremely charming and convincing. So convincing that they can trick people into killing themselves. Encountering this mask is like an episode of Goosebumps gone way too far. Number 1, SCP-700. This SCP was made by Nikola Tesla. He wanted to make an energy weapon that would shoot out lightning at something or somebody or something like that. I think he was going for something like Thor's hammer, but instead he came up with a universe-ending machine. SCP-700 creates an energy wave that rips through time and warps it. What does that mean
There we go,
exactly?
Shabby Leopard, my guy. Cool hat
It
on.
would create a YK-class entropic annihilation event. Don't worry, I have no idea what that means either. I had to look it up. Basically, it would be the opposite of the Big Bang, bringing everything everywhere to a
this is
halt.
not a
We
guy.
should have just
My
stopped
bad.
at sliced
I'm
bread and
sorry.
called it a
This
day.
is a
We don't
female.
need any more inventions. We're done.
At number 10, how do you know that you aren't an SCP? Like,
Yeah.
seriously, think about it. You could be. Could you not very well be a clone or a clone of a clone? How would you know? Are we living in a matrix? Questions, yet no answers. Would the Foundation really be chill with so many world-ending Keter-class SCPs locked up in an actually kind of breachable facility? No, they would not. So in the end, it seems they created SCP-2000, a reality reboot, an SCP with the purpose of reconstructing civilization at the events of a K-class end-of-world scenario. The year it was created is classified, but the Foundation notes suggest that
he walks. Let's go.
it's been active activated
That's it. I
at
told you
least
in the
twice
watch.
in
I told you
history,
they
which
gonna
means that we
score.
aren't living in
telling
the
you,
original
5
world, which,
runs.
you know, is
It's
worrying.
coming right
The
now.
Foundation notes from Dr. Henrietta Eisenhower read, if we ever have to do this again, please do not set the resume date further back than 20 years before the event. Not only can we piggyback on a lot of undestroyed
strike, it's
structures
okay.
if we do, but it will make continuity
One
a
strike a
lot
day, keep
easier
the
to
hate away.
resume.
Know what I mean?
What does
And
that
then they
mean?
gonna say
Tell
you
us
T.
more. It seems that the process begins with a core number of 5 million replacement humans who are then told they're part of SCP-2000, and these core humans then work together to smooth the reconstruction over. They make other replacement humans believe that they're living in the original reality, but we're not. My point being, if the world ended, like so many SCPs in this list could bring about, you would die. Sure. But you'd be replaced in a new world.
Oh, good shit. See, I told you. What I told you. What I
Coming
told
into
you. It's gonna be 5 runs.
106.
5 runs. 5 runs in the 9th inning.
Does anyone
Top of the
smell,
9th.
like,
5 runs.
I don't know, like
Let's go, Atlanta Braves.
something rotten?
Shout out to the Braves.
It could well be SCP-106,
I ain't from Atlanta, but
who
shout out to the
smells like
Braves.
death and decay personified. His SCP presents as an elderly humanoid in a constant state of decomposing. Gross. It literally looks like an old, rotting corpse, which I really don't want to see or smell, ever. 106 lays motionless for days and can hide in walls, floors, and other objects, waiting to strike. When it does strike, it goes after 10 to 25-year-olds mostly, damaging their internal organs so they can't
baby.
escape. It then
Come on, Kate
pulls them
Pillar.
into a
I mean,
pocket
Pilar.
dimension, which to the outside
My
world
bad.
would look like a rotting piece of wood or a moldy wall or something. It then devours
Pardon my
its
French
victims
by the
as
kid
they
speaking
rot.
English.
Any physical contact between the SCP and any other matter, living or mineral, results in that person or item becoming corroded and
Okay,
rotten.
Strong replaces
Mucus
Soto.
residue is
I guess Soto ain't
produced
doing
that
good
seems
right
to
now. They know it's
resist
crunch time.
corrosion. Because
Know what I
of the
mean?
nature
Soto
of
under pressure.
SCP-106, it manages
Soto
to
under pressure.
frequently escape containment, breaking out
In
of
score,
its cell
4-3, Atlanta
Did you know
Braves.
you can increase your revenue with Snapchat ads? Just ask Manscaped.
We have seen a 162% increase in revenue from Snapchat ads in the
blending into the walls and rotting it until it crumbles. This SCP could and would break and crumble and mold anything it touched in the world.
Come on, babe,
Honestly,
babe. Come on,
can't get
babe,
bored of
babe.
mold. I
Come
really
on.
can't. Look, coming in at number 8, we have SCP-3007. SCP-3007
Everything's a
is
clean up,
an
clean up,
uncontrolled
clean up,
hazard,
clean up.
which
Like I
means that
said,
just
bro.
by knowing
Like I
about
said, bro.
it
I
can
am
destroy
therefore
the
I will.
world.
I am
SCP-3007
therefore I
is
will.
in the
Now, how
Keter
shall
class,
I
and according
spend
to
it?
the
That's
Foundation, a
25.
containment
Let's
breach
go. I
of
am
it would
therefore I
likely
will.
result in an XK class end of the world scenario.
That's
Good,
it.
fun.
Just calm.
Okay, but like, what
That's
is it?
it. Come on, home run,
SCP-3007
smack,
can
smack,
best
like
be
I
understood
said.
by our mortal minds as a dream. A really
I
bad
am
dream.
therefore I
In this
will.
dream, whatever
Eat
happens in the
what I
subconscious
told
world
you.
happens to you in real life. If you're hurt in the dream, you're hurt in your bed. If you die in the dream, well,
Stop being
you know,
scary
you're
with
dead. The SCP
Stop
is known
being
as
scary
Dread
with
and is said to once have destroyed an alien civilization completely, and now it wants to bleed out into our world. The only way to contain this SCP is to kill anyone that is aware of it, and most especially those who have dreamed of it. So, you know, maybe be careful when you go to sleep tonight. Sorry about it. Coming into number 7, we have SCP-990. Is he trying to help or hinder?
And now we about to
That's the
finish
question.
up. Atlanta Braves about to bring it
SCP-990 is
home.
another dreamy
Smack a
creature.
tower.
It appears in
Like
people's
crack a
subconscious as
tower.
they sleep as a Cold War era male.
He said, smack
in the
a tower
drawings and
like crack a
artworks
tower.
created the SCP, he is wearing a hat
Fire
and has
power
a kind
from
of
the
red
red flower.
stripe
I ain't
of
mad
light
at you,
across his
but you
eyes.
get
What does
power.
it mean?
Ooh,
He
oh,
is
pipe
classed
dream,
as
baby.
Keter,
I'm
obviously,
not a rapper,
although the
chill,
Foundation
shot.
don't
I get the rapping
actually
over
know
here.
if the SCP is bad or good.
They
He
had to
claims
call
be
a
good,
timeout or
but
something.
would,
They
wouldn't
panicking.
you? Dreams in which
They panicking.
SCP-990 show up tend to end with him making a grave future prediction. He'll warn the dreamer of a
good.
disaster, which then inevitably comes true in their waking life. Sounds like a good Samaritan, right? Warning,
Confuse
get
your
out of
head,
here.
makes you a power
Well,
trap.
the Foundation aren't actually too sure if maybe he's the one causing the disasters. Worse yet, he has made an end-of-the-world prediction called 99007.
Oh, got hit. Now he died
He
an
says
hour
that
after.
an SCP will bring about the end of everything we know, but that SCP isn't even yet known to the Foundation. When he made the warning, he claimed that the
Moving
SCP
work
is
to your
female
old fame,
and
that's
hasn't
sad
even
disaster.
been born. Remember the
Maybe
last
worse
part of
if
this
things
series?
wrong.
Well, some predicted it could be the child of SCP-2317.
Alright, that's
Coming into
one
number
strike,
6,
but you know
could
we ain't
this
stressing that.
SCP end the world?
We
Well,
definitely ain't stressing that.
really is the question,
We definitely ain't
right?
stressing that
And
one
as
strike.
always, we really don't have
We
too many
definitely ain't
answers,
stressing that.
and I'm sorry about it. Meet SCP-3034.
In play. What I said, home run. Knock out the fucking pop. Alright, it ain't a home run, but it's alright. In play. Is it in play? Alright, now he out. It's alright though. It's alright.
Okay, so what you're hearing is a broadcast of unknown origin that's been noted 627 times since 1964. The broadcast
his name is Zario. He about to smack that shit. Come on, Papi. Come on, Papi. Smack that shit.
If it's heard, Foundation members who speak Russian must respond in the same frequency with the message.
Even if you don't smack it.
Why?
Bring it home.
Classified. What would happen if we didn't
respond? You already know what I need.
Honestly,
you know what I need, baby.
Could this SCP end the world?
Now what you need, everything on now, it's fucking with me. Yeah, money
Also a mystery is SCP-1782. It's a room measuring 42 by 45 square meters. It appears as an abandoned apartment complex located in Kiev in the Ukraine. The doorway to the room reads in Ukrainian 198D. Why? Well, by now I guess you should know better than to ask.
You gotta do it right here, baby. Right here. Right here. Just get on base. Like I said, I am before I will. Before I will. Oh shit.
It's simply an empty space. Anyone who enters the room returns with a fear of holes, and nobody knows why. And I don't like tiny holes in the first place. Have I been to the room? Maybe I have. In the room, a faint sound of metal scraping on metal can be heard. On one occasion, a disembodied female voice could be heard saying, "Shakes me, makes me lighter."
Take it easy. Take it easy.
Another time, the room shifted, and a man was being eaten alive by parrots without expressing any
Take
pain.
it easy.
What this room means and why it always changes is unknown, but the Foundation do not trust it. Neither do I. Tiny holes, once again. Ugh. Coming into number 4, we have SCP-409. SCP-409 is a large quartz crystal standing at 5 feet tall and 2 feet wide, so basically a crystal bigger than me. Big boy crystal. Shout out. The crystal is quarantined in a sealed granite container, and it must never, ever be opened. But if it was, then any single thing that comes into contact it would begin to crystallize. Oh, and if it's exposed to the air, the crystal will continue to grow and drop shards of smaller crystals that will also turn everything that touches it into,
strike, let's go. It's okay.
Unless you
strike called. I need to just get in play. That's it. Just get in play and bring Ozuna home.
The only problem is you could touch one of its
Bring Ozuna home. I don't care if he walk home. Yes. Give me 3 more bulls. I mean, call him Treyway. Give me 3 bulls, baby. Call him Treyway.
SCP-682 has an omnicidal rage, making it a beastie that you don't want to mess with.
Dirt ball slider.
It is a large reptile-like creature that literally wants to kill everything.
Okay.
But like, actually,
everything. Man.
In its reptile form, it gets energy from anything and everything it ingests.
They're not even showing
eating until it's stopped, and the more it eats, the more powerful it gets. The SCP is a master of escaping containment and has to be submerged in hydrochloric acid to stop it from breaking free, although it has escaped 6 times. Despite being partially corroded by acid, the SCP can regenerate, and again, it wants you to die. Coming into number 2, we have SCP-2.5.2.1. No, I haven't gone mental. I just
throwing them 90s.
The name of it. This
like I said, I am there for I will. I know it's about to happen. I have to smack that.
Only be described or discussed in visuals. Any attempt to write or speak about the SCP will result in it coming to get you. Which, by the looks of things, wouldn't be pretty. So, as I can't really talk about it, let me show you some images from the Foundation notes. So here's a picture of the SCP, and to me, it looks like it's made up from whirls of old VHS tape. Remember those? Here's a diagram explaining in visuals how you must never write, save information, or talk about it. If you do, something about sticky tape pans? I don't know. What are you making from this? It seems like it can also escape confinement really easily, but showing it images seems to baffle it. I don't know if you guys are keeping up with this, but just keep looking. I'm just going to keep showing you more images and really hope for the best, as I can't talk about it for fear of it wrapping me up in tapey hands and stealing me away. Also, there may or may not be like a little bit of a rapey theme going on here. It has a heart eye when it goes in for attack, which, I don't know, there's a lot to interpret there, and I don't like it. Get your tapey, sticky hands away from me, sir. Get out of here. Finally, coming into number 1, we have when day breaks. Okay, I really don't like this SCP because, ugh, gooey, sticky, gross. It makes me feel very, very vomity. So the SCP is often known as SCP-001, but as we know, there are many SCP-001s. This one seems to be an absolute world-ending nightmare. When day breaks refers to an SCP in which the sun gets really hot, like really hot. Way hotter than it is right now, meaning that everyone on Earth begins to slowly melt until they become a fleshy goop. Now you'd think that everyone would kind of be melted and fleshy and dead, but no, we stay alive. We kind of become these fleshy, goopy zombies. We're like sentient, fleshy goo, which is gross and creepy, and I need to stop thinking about it because, again, sick. But that isn't the grossest or the creepiest part. You see, it seems that the piles of sentient goo can band together to try and coax those who may be surviving by hiding in the shadows and staying out of the sun. Now, they can bring them out of the sun, get them melted, and then, take them in as part of their ooze. I don't like it. I'm actually going to say a hard no to being a melted flesh monster. Let's hope that day never breaks. Coming in at number 10, we have SCP-2719, an SCP I'm calling the Inside Outside. Foundation notes on SCP-2719 are sketchy and concerning. The object class is Keter, which means it's not well contained. All we get from the notes is this: SCP-2719 is a variable, abstract, metaphysical construct pointer. Concepts acted upon by SCP-2719 will either go or become inside. Further information on the SCP should not be provided to personnel who are both sapient and biological. Guilty. Then we get a list of pointers. Now these are humans who either went inside or became inside or died inside. One of the so-called subjects who went inside was the entirety of Oulu in Finland. Oulu, Finland? What's up, Finland? What's happening? Coming in at number 9, we have SCP-SCP-J, aka Scrippy. SCP-SCP-J used to be a cartoon mascot found in training videos for D-Class personnel prior to 1994. But after its retirement, it became a pest and was classified an SCP. The Foundation notes often refer to it as the Little. Object class Keter, Scrippy's containment notes read: SCP-SCP-J is to be kept in a hermetically sealed containment vault at Site 58 in the hope that it might suffocate and starve to death, though the Foundation acknowledges that such a wonderful possibility actually coming to fruition is ill-becoming of anything associated with the SCP. It wants it to die, basically. The notes also detail an encounter from the year 1995 before Scrippy was contained. It seems that the cartoon was bothersome. It would ask a lot of questions, interject with riddles, and then make way for other SCPs to come in and kill. I think SCP is kind of like a way more menacing and cartoon C3PO. Coming into number 8, we have SCP-1496, the place setting. Honestly, how strange. It seems that this SCP was obtained during a raid in an urban literary collective in Quebec, Canada. Why a raid would need to be conducted for what is described as a plate and several items of silverware, well, we just don't know. The SCP notes suggest that the SCP is locked up safely in a small item locker in the Foundation. They also read it no longer displays any ongoing anomalous properties, although records it has affected in the past remain in their affected state. Oh my god, what happened? I feel like I need to know. I'm here scratching my head on what these records might contain and how did cutlery in a plate cause so much drama. Coming into number 7, we have SCP-4559, the receipt. Okay, this one is pure quirky. I'm actually very, very here for it. SCP-4559 is, and I quote, a problematic anomaly associated with the choice on whether or not a person wants a receipt or not within most grocery stores. Lol. It seems that SCP-4559 will not trigger if a customer chooses to get a receipt or is non-consensually given one. But at the same time, the notes suggest that the SCP may actually be the act of decision-making as to whether or not to get a receipt. I'm mind-boggled. The notes suggest that this SCP is the only unpredictable and totally random phenomenon in the universe. Sure. Adding further mystery is that the Foundation notes say that all information about the SCP is to be removed.
It's perfect, thank you.
I know, honey.
At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
removed from all scientific institutions. Also baffling is that the object class is thormeal. What? Coming into number 6, we have SCP-2827, the Lobster. This is a Mexican mystery if I ever did hear one. This SCP is so mysterious that the Foundation don't even have an object class for it. The page on the Foundation website is headed with a notice from the Records of Information and Security Administration. It reads, as of 12/13/15, the database entry for SCP-2827 has been rewritten 73 times due to massive database corruption. While the possibility of tampering or sabotage has not been ruled out, it is currently believed that the information about SCP-2827 is inherently unstable and subject to unpredictable erratic changes. So, what I tell you, it may change. The most recent information suggests that the SCP is a 2-meter square plot of grass and looks like a lobster. A lot of data has been expunged or corrupted on the SCP, which seems to appear on the west coast of the United States. Notes suggest that there have been 13 casualties associated with examining SCP-2827. Coming into number 5, we have SCP-1665, the Crossword. Look, I don't know, but some people love a good crossword. Personally, I just don't have the patience for it. I'm a Slytherin, not a Ravenclaw. I like to know the facts and act accordingly immediately. But that is not possible with SCP-1665. Have a look at what we are dealing with here. It's a crossword with cryptic clues. Now 18 across is all written records will be altered so that they are in the form of a crossword blank, making storage of information on SCP-1665 difficult. Now I'm guessing the blank here is puzzle. Yay for me. Other clues are cryptic but allow you to piece together information about it. But again, honey ain't got time. If anyone has the patience to play this game, there is a link to the source in the description box. Now if you complete it, do tweet me or Instagram me with a completed picture and let me know so I can read it out for a future episode. Thank you for your hard work. Coming into number 4, we have SCP-3733, the Last Sane Man. Is this SCP sane or insane? Is it insanity itself? The Foundation notes claim that this SCP is an info hazard capable of spreading, but they don't know how. The infection caused by the SCP activates several typically inactive areas of the brain, resulting in an inability to act and reason outside of one's own experiences and personality. So what is their purpose here? It seems that when a person has been infected, they become SCP-37331. Now it's pretty hard to tell from the Foundation notes, which are an exchange between researcher Calvin and a person apparently infected with the SCP, Dr. Chapman. What's happening? Again, sketchy. The researcher has quarantined the doctor, who believes that researcher Calvin is the one infected. He claims that he is the last sane man in the world and that everyone else is quote-unquote gone. Coming into number 3, we have SCP-3976, Dead Agatha Christie's. Yeah. Bizarrely enough, a lot of dead Agatha Christie's have been showing up in rural England. The real Agatha Christie, a famous mystery author who wrote Murder on the Orient Express, The Mousetrap and Poirot, has been dead since 1976. Even though she died in the 1970s, in 1926, she famously went missing for 11 days, and maybe that's important here. This SCP manifests as the dead body of Christie, appearing as if murdered, in many ways described in famous murder scenes from her book. DNA analysis have shown that the bodies are genetically identical to Agatha Christie's real cops, which is really bizarre. Coming into number 2, we have SCP-4023, Dr. Ike's Investigation. By order of the Foundation High Command, information on the SCP is classified. All we know is that Dr. Ike's is investigating the nature of this SCP, which seems to be a collection of 23 anomalous objects and entities. The number 23 seems to be important. A sketchy gathering of information seems to suggest a Lovecraftian-style entity is connecting the 23, and actually, there might even be a cult out there that worships the number and everything it stands for. What that is exactly, it's hard for me to say. If you click on any of the links provided in the Foundation notes, it will say that your access has been blocked. Coming into number 1, it is none other than SCP-001. SCP-001 is often referred to as the original evil. Is the original SCP the Scarlet King? There actually are many SCP-001s out there, all of which are pretty horrifying to learn about. We've got When Day Breaks, which is a scenario wherein the sun gets hotter and brighter and we all melt but don't die and basically turn into sentient flesh zombies. Ooh. There's also the story of the Simple Toy Maker and the Dead Man, God's Blind Spot, and more. SCP-001 is a closely guarded mystery. The Foundation notes read, in order to prevent knowledge of SCP-001 from being leaked, several /no false SCP-001 files have been created alongside the true file files. All files concerning the nature of SCP-001 include the decoy and decoys. They are protected by a memetic kill agent designed to immediately cause cardiac arrest in any non-authorized personnel attempting to access the file. Revealing the true nature of the SCP to the general public is cause for execution. So, execution, to me it sounds like the Foundation are going to be keeping this one under lock and key forever, and really, it's in our best interest to not go digging, unless we want to die.
At number 10, we have SCP-169. Alright, we're going to be kicking off this list with a massive SCP. Like, this thing could use the Empire State Building as a toothpick. It probably takes dumps the size of Kentucky. It's estimated that SCP-169 is somewhere between 2,000 and 8,000 kilometers long, and because of its massive size, it's impossible to lock this beast away in a proper containment cell. It can only be observed and studied. It is an ocean-dwelling creature using the great depths of the ocean to hide from the public. The exact description of this SCP is unknown, but it's believed that it could have the whale of a body and possibly long tentacles like a squid. The biggest threat that this SCP brings to the table is the ability to affect tides, earthquakes, and tsunamis with just the flick of its tail. If this thing trips and falls over, it could put an entire country underwater. For now, everyone is safe, but just in case SCP-169 catches a cold and decides to sneeze, you might want to start moving inland. At number 9, we have SCP-808. This is the shadow creature. This SCP is a little hard to describe because it doesn't have a body. Think of it as living darkness. This SCP can't be touched or tampered with, but it can be contained. It's very hard to do research on because the SCP can't have samples removed from its form. It will not immediately kill anyone, but being within 10 meters of this SCP will cause drowsiness. If you are in the containment area with SCP-808 for more than 30 minutes, you will pass out and immediately go into REM sleep. If you are not removed from the containment area quickly, then you will have long-term psychological damage. At number 8, we have SCP-049, the classic goth SCP. This guy looks like every goth kid's imaginary friend. The street name for this guy is the Plague Doctor, as it looks exactly like a 15th century doctor with that long bird mask and those black robes. However, unlike a regular Plague Doctor who puts on that clothing, it's thought that the robes and mask of SCP-049 are actually part of its body. This guy is not a poser goth. He has been living this lifestyle more than anyone ever has. He was literally born a goth. If you're unfortunate enough to be touched or touch SCP-049, then balloons will fall from the ceiling and you'll win the lotto jackpot 649. No, just kidding, you'll die instantly. No questions asked. Once this thing has you dead and you're on the ground, it will open up its surgical bag and start to do a series of experiments on you, just like you're a frog in 10th grade biology class. It'll take a few samples, then sew you back up, and then be on its way. Probably do a little hat tip, like, oh, something like that. At number 7, we have SCP-023. This SCP would be really cute if it wasn't.
Now, ADT installs Google Nest products.
Cool. An SCP. Trust me on this one. Everything I'm going to describe you about this SCP is great right up until we get to the SCP parts. So SCP-023 is a 5-foot tall, black, shaggy dog. Yeah, doesn't that sound like the best thing ever? A giant dog that you can play with, and it's massive, like he's so big and so cute. Could you imagine cuddling that thing? It would be so big and fluffy, I wouldn't need to go to therapy anymore. But now I'm gonna hit you with all the downsides. All SCPs have downsides, even the fluffy ones. I mean, most of them are only downsides. This black shaggy dog has these big bright orange eyes, and if you look at this beautiful beast in the eyes, either you or a family member will die in a year. But if you're really making a list of pros and cons, on one side, you have death within a year from looking this thing in the eyes. Or on the other side, you get to pet a big fluffy dog. So you're basically breaking even. And it might not even be you that die. It might be one of your annoying cousins or something like that, because it also kills your family members. So that's fine. At number 6, you have SCP-682. This SCP is a massive lizard creature that can spit acid and consume almost anything through nostril glands. Anything it consumed can be helped to regenerate its body, which makes this SCP nearly indestructible. So far, any attempts to destroy this SCP have not been effective. This SCP can communicate extremely well due to its high IQ. And for whatever reason, this SCP has a deep, dark hatred for anything that's alive. It's basically Doomsday from the Superman comics. It will kill a cute little bird just because it's there. SCP-682 has to be kept in a facility in the middle of nowhere in case it escapes. If it's able to go on a killing spree, it will start start to consume all that organic matter and become more powerful than ever. At number 5, we have SCP-053. Once again, we have another cute SCP that cannot be trusted. I wouldn't be surprised if one of these SCPs is just some dude's ex-girlfriend. It's like, dude, she's so crazy, I swear. She keeps telling me that she loves me and we've only been together for like 3 years. I'm creeped out. This SCP is a little more scary than a girl just wanting to build a future with you. SCP-053 is a little girl that seems harmless. Her exact age is unknown, but she seems to be about 3 years old. Her intelligence also seems to be the same of a 3-year-old girl. SCP-053 has similar interests to a young girl. It enjoys coloring books and board games, and it's important to keep SCP-053 occupied with these games. If you are stuck in close proximity to SCP-053, you will be unharmed for the first 10 minutes. After this point, you will start to experience symptoms of psychosis and start to receive homicidal thoughts. If you attempt to harm SCP-053, you will drop dead immediately after attacking her. Any damage caused to SCP-053 will be healed from its regenerative abilities. At number 4, we have SCP-102. Now we're getting into the really weird stuff. This SCP isn't a girl or a dog or anything breathing. This SCP is a couple of townhouses. If you walk into these townhouses, you would be dead before you know it, and I bet if they were in Toronto, their property value would still be over $1 million. SCP-102 is broken down to 2 sections. SCP-102-1 is a condo that looks like a rundown building with the owner's dead body still in the rubble, unless you own a lease for the building. Then it looks like a beautiful house. If you walk in, you'll fall unconscious and become a ghost until the lease is up. I hope that part is in the contract, or at least in the fine print or something. If you enter the other building, SCP-102-2, you'll be presumed dead and go missing immediately. But still, if the rent is below $600, I think I would risk it. At number 3, we have SCP-017. The best way I can describe this SCP is a fart that can strike back. That's like when you fart in the shower and the steam intensifies it, but you can't escape or freak out because you'll slip and fall. This is like that, but you disappear entirely. Maybe to another dimension, or maybe this thing eats you. I really have no idea. SCP-017 is known as the Shadow Person. It's a shadowy figure that floats above the ground. It's about 80 centimeters tall and somewhat resembles a child. Now, this SCP doesn't really do anything as long as it's not provoked. It will just float there and linger like a dog fart, unless you cast a shadow on it. If any shadow comes in contact with this shadow figure, it will engulf whatever is casting the shadow, and it doesn't matter if this thing is a person or an inanimate object. This thing will then vaporize it just because it came in contact with that shadow, which is kind of unreasonable if you ask me. This SCP is currently being contained and is kept in a glass case in a room that is lit from both the floor and the ceiling. This way no shadows can be casted upon it. At number 2, we have SCP-122. This SCP is the biggest wolf in sheep's clothing I have ever seen. 122 is a nightlight. Yeah, dude, this thing is a nightlight. And I thought nightlights were meant to keep monsters away. This thing is like the Trojan horse sneaking monsters right into your room. Well, SCP-122 is a nightlight that always needs to be hooked up to a power supply. If the power supply is removed from 122, then everyone within a 500-meter radius who is sleeping will go into a coma and remain in a coma until the power is returned to the nightlight. Anyone who is in a coma caused by SCP-122 will have shadow figures come out of their bodies until the coma curse is broken. And for our number 1 spot, we have SCP-610. This SCP is one of the most dangerous ones you can come across. SCP-160 is a highly contagious disease that can spread through any organic material. If you are unfortunate enough to come in contact with this SCP, call your loved ones because you only have a few hours of life left. Upon first contact, you will have a small rash break out on your arms. It will get worse and spread to your chest until open sores appear all over your body. It will continue to consume the person until your skin is so badly damaged that you die. This process takes about 5 hours. After the disease kills you, you will then bounce back to life, a zombie with increased speed, strength, and the ability to mutate your extremities. Oh, and don't forget, a bloodlust for killing innocent people. That is a very important part. At number 10, we have SCP-1322. Could you imagine looking through a hole and seeing into another dimension that seems better than our own? That would really get me cheese. This SCP has also been known as the Glory Hole. Yes, I know this is a gross nickname, but it is for a very good reason. It is a small hole that leads to a much better destination than a traditional glory hole would. It is a 1 centimeter in diameter hole that seems to look into another world, a world that is very similar to our own but much more advanced when it comes to technology. It seems to be a world filled with humans like our own, but there is a downside though. I mean, this is the SCP Foundation we're talking talking about, so of course there is always a few downsides. This other world has not made advancements when it comes to medicine. The reason for this is unknown. It could be because they simply do not value health, or there could be some sort of disease that prevents them from becoming healthier. Even though there's mostly humans on the other side of this glory hole, it seems like there could also be monstrosities as well. At number 9, we have SCP-093. This SCP is a key, but to where? Well, it depends on who is holding it. It will lead you to a dimension much like our own, but possibly with much stronger religious control. Who knows? Each dimension it could lead you to is very different. The SCP looks like a red disc, but has markings on it that are unknown by any human. These markings haven't been linked to any type of civilization. If you put SCP-093 down on a flat surface, it will start to move on its own and find the nearest mirror. It will then connect to this mirror, and this is how it's able to open up portals to other dimensions. If SCP-093 is being held, it will change colors depending on who's holding it. The color change will lead to different alternate dimensions. It is unknown how to control the color change of SCP-093. There are dimensions that can be connected to that have creatures in them that will harm anyone who comes in contact with them. At number 8, we have SCP-507, also known as the Smiling Man. This SCP seems to just be a normal man who likes to be called the following names: Tommy, Steve, Houdini, and Garbanok the Destroyer. It's that last one that makes me freak out a little bit, because this is not just a normal man. This SCP has the ability to teleport to an alternate dimension and then return. It seems that the SCP has some control over this, but for the most part, it is random. There is an extensive catalog of information on what these alternate dimensions look like and the people that SCP-507 meets over there. This SCP has been classified as safe because it hasn't tried to harm anyone and has even asked permission to teleport to other dimensions before it has done this. One reason was to visit another SCP and then came back with a relatively boring story. But that's why I don't trust this dude. What if he brings back a massive monster? I'm not into it. No one who can teleport can be that boring. At number 7, we have SCP-1437, an endless hole that will sometimes puke up cool stuff. There have been a number of inanimate objects that have flown out of this SCP. For the most part, it's nothing too interesting, like dirt and rocks, but one of the most useful things that have come through this SCP are a skyline photo of New York. This showed New York as a completely different city. This could confirm that through this SCP, there is a gate to another version of our reality that could be drastically different. One of the most alarming things that has come through this SCP is a note that said, "Please send rain." This could mean that across this dimensional rift, there's a version of Earth that has a massive drought and could be about to die. Well, at least we're not on that side. At number 6, we have SCP-1936. The town of Daleport, New England was just a regular place until a massive gaseous cloud covered it, and it was thought that it was housing another dimension. It was in 1997, and the SCP Foundation could not enter the town at this time because of the gaseous cloud. But X-ray radiographs have shown some strange imagery. It looks as if there was humanoid creatures that had octopus-like tentacles in place of their feet. It's unknown if these humanoid creatures passed through a dimensional rift into the town, or if it was the gaseous cloud that was causing mutations in the people of Daleport. Most of the people present in the town during this time committed suicide. At number 5, we have SCP-2639. This SCP will cover a 1-kilometer area in what seems to be a cubic force field and open up a rift into another dimension. 3 humanoid creatures known as SCP-2639-A will appear. It's unknown how to communicate with these beasts, but they seem destructive in nature. They have super speed, super strength, and agility. And any sort of weapons used on SCP-2639 seem to have no effect. They can damage it, but they do not react in any sort of way that showcases a feeling of pain. If enough damage is done to one of these 3 humanoid creatures, they will dissolve and another one will appear in their place, completely regenerated with no signs of damage. They cannot leave the cubic space. It will last for approximately 1 to 2 hours and then vanish. At number 4, we have SCP-1171, a house SCP. How nice. It seems like this house may be a portal to another dimension or a form of communication to another dimension. Condensation will appear on the windows of this house at all times, regardless of the external or internal temperature. Through condensation was the discovery of SCP-1171-1. This is a creature that will write on the condensation but cannot be heard, seen, or felt in any way. If you write back on the condensation, you may communicate with this beast. It goes by the name Boromont, and it has a hatred for all human life. Well, good thing he's on the other side of that dimensional portal, and hopefully he'll never come over to us. At number 3, we have SCP-XXXX. At first glance, this SCP seems just to be a normal human. He even goes by a human name, Grady Evans. But after closer inspection, this SCP seems to be a human from parallel universe and is extremely powerful. If SCP-XXXX touches you, it has the ability to take you to its dimension, and if this SCP ever feels threatened, it can disappear into a place in between dimensions for safety. When it goes into the place in between dimensions, it can use telepathy to communicate with other people from its own dimension. It's safe to say you don't want to let this SCP get close to you at any time. At number 2, we have SCP-106, the Old Man. This creature is from an unknown origins, but it's thought that it could be from a pocket dimension that it sometimes escapes to. It seems that this pocket dimension could be a parallel universe to our own, or simply a place where SCP-106 stores its food. Its food, which is almost always people. This SCP has been called the Old Man because it does look like an elderly man with some major differences. Its entire body seems to be rotting. It also produces some sort of acid-like substance out of its body that can break down solid material or flesh. If this SCP comes in contact with you, it will almost certainly attack you, usually disemboweling you before it takes you to a pocket dimension. Once you are in this other dimension, it's almost guaranteed that you will not return. At number 1, we have SCP-2682. At first glance, this SCP seems to only be a Korean strawberry that has the ability to communicate through telepathy, but after extensive conversation, it was determined that this SCP is one of the most powerful creatures across dimensions and simply became stuck. It was a philosopher from another dimension who worked with other philosophers. They studied the occult and gained the power to trap God. They then performed experiments on God and gained all of its knowledge, all the knowledge it possessed about their universe. After that, they became bored and crossed between dimensions to collect knowledge from all other dimensions. After doing this, SCP-2682 transformed and became stuck. It's unfamiliar with our dimension and the laws of reality. It does not know how to free itself and desperately would like to leave. It's unknown how to set this creature free, and if released, it's unknown what kind of effect it would have on our reality. At number 10, we have SCP-049. Better known as the Plague Doctor. This guy looks like he was pulled right out of 19th century France. He's got one of those long bird masks that doctors used to wear, the ones that make them look like they are about to take out your eyeballs and use them for some sort of strange experiment. The mask it has on its face is ceramic, and the rest of its body is covered by a dark cloak. The strange thing about this SCP is that it seems like the mask and the cloak aren't clothes, but have grown out of the SCP's body and are part of its own physical body. This SCP has the ability to communicate with people at the SCP Foundation, mainly in English. The SCP seems open to talk about all topics, but will become combative if it feels that the person who it's talking to is infected with what it calls the pestilence. The description of what that actually means has never been provided to the SCP Foundation. If SCP-049 thinks that you are infected with the pestilence, it will try to kill you, and it can do that just from skin contact. How it kills you is still unknown. Once you're dead, it will start to do some sort of medieval surgery on you. There's the chance to reanimate your body into a zombie-like state. Basically, you don't want this guy to come out and meet all your friends. He's not going to be that good of a time. At number 9, we have SCP-093. It's just a little red disc. What is there to be afraid of? Even though this SCP looks just like an inanimate object, it can start moving on its own. It will start to seek out the closest mirror, and when it does, it will attach itself to said mirror, and it will open up a portal to another dimension. What dimension does this SCP open up a portal to? Well, that is currently unknown, and because this is the SCP Foundation, I can assume it's a dimension that's filled with zombies who want to eat our soul, or monsters, or whatever, some creatures that will come out and destroy the whole world. Not necessarily in that order. Thought that this SCP might open up a portal to a different dimension depending on what mirror it attaches to. Also, if someone is touching the SCP, it can change the color of the SCP altogether. There's speculation that this could also affect what dimension this SCP is able to access. There's not a known way to control the color change of the SCP, but it might be based on the mood or beliefs of the person holding it. At number 8, we have SCP-004. Now, this one is just a door and a set of keys, but it can never be exposed to the public for multiple reasons. There are 13 keys that can be used to open this door, and if any of them except for 2 specific keys are used, the person who's holding the keys will be ripped into pieces and their body will be thrown through space and time. Body parts sometimes appear weeks later, not having decayed at all. One of the keys that can open the door will lead to an impossibly big room on the other side, and the other will lead to a world that is unknown but should be avoided. This unknown world should be avoided because because anyone who goes in there will come back in a catatonic state and try to scratch out their own eyeballs. So whatever is on the other side of that unknown world should never be accessed and should never escape into our world. At number 7, we have SCP-963. This SCP is an amulet that has the consciousness of Dr. Jack Bright, who is a high-ranking member of the SCP Foundation, trapped inside of it. It's unknown how this came to be, but it seems to have happened when Dr. Bright was killed by SCP-0762 when it escaped from its containment cell. It seems that the SCP was attempting to activate the amulet and bind to it, but killing Dr. Bright caused him to bind to it. If someone wears the amulet, they will be taken over by Dr. Bright's consciousness. If the amulet is removed, they will return to normal. If the person wears the amulet for 30 days or more, they will become a copy of Dr. Bright that is independent from the amulet. Now, Dr. Bright wants nothing to do with the amulet and is tirelessly researching on a way to free himself from this piece of jewelry. But if this SCP fell into the wrong hands, they can use it to make copies of themselves over and then take over the world. At number 6, we have SCP-184. Are you looking to build a new addition to your home? Well, this SCP might be the thing you need, but I promise you stuff will get really weird. If this SCP is left in a room, it will cause the room to expand continuously. The process starts just after 1 hour of the SCP being left in a room. At first, the room will only expand, but as it's in there for longer and longer, the room will get larger and larger, and it will cause different rooms to form. Also, it will create furniture like bookcases and hallways and all sorts of different stuff like that. These replicas will be versions of things that are already in the room. The SCP doesn't follow the standard building practices that we all seem to know. It will make items out of whatever it thinks fits, like hallways made out of carpet or bookshelves made out of metal. This will continue until the SCP is removed from the room. If this SCP got into the wrong hands and was just left in a room, it could literally expand until it took over the whole world. At number 5, we have SCP-303. Some of you may know this SCP as the Doorman. It is a large human-looking thing with decayed skin and a mouth that takes up almost all of its face. There's a ton of gums and big teeth. This dude looks super gross, and if the looks weren't enough, it makes this wheezing noise that is also very off-putting. Yeah, this guy sounds great. It appears behind doors, and anyone who looks at it will have an intense fear take over their body to the point where it can make it impossible for them to move. At any time this SCP has been viewed, only 10% of its body has been seen. Any attempt to see more of its body will cause it to vanish into thin air. At number 4, SCP-966. Gross humanoid creatures that hide in the dark and want to eat you. That's what all these SCPs are, really. They have sharp teeth and prey on people who aren't looking. For the most part, they aren't physically strong, but they can group up on you and take you out. They can also emit a sonic stream to incapacitate you. Oh, and if I didn't mention, these creepers cannot be seen by the naked eye. If they weren't already creepy enough, they're also invisible unless you look at them through night vision goggles. So better head to the nearest army surplus store and see if you can find some night vision goggles, because who knows, maybe you have an infestation of these things in your home, and this carnivorous SCP is waiting to eat you. At number 3, we have SCP-073. This SCP has been named Cain and seems to be an enhanced human at face value who looks like a man from Middle Eastern descent, but both of his arms and his legs, along with his entire spine, have been removed, and in their place is some sort of metallic prosthetic. SCP-073 is hyper-intelligent and has an extensive knowledge of all modern and ancient history. Cain is very helpful to all the SCP staff. He is non-violent, but the reason I put him on this list is because all vegetation that comes within a 20-meter
Hey, how's it going? What's
radius of
going on? I appreciate it.
Also, any
Thanks for the
damage
follow.
done to Cain
Much
was
love, much
reflected
love.
back on the attacker,
But you
and
see
Cain
how
remains unharmed. If this dude got loose and turned evil, he could destroy the world's food source, and there would be nothing we could do to kill him. We could only contain him. At number 2, we have SCP-513. No more cowbells. Just this one. The rest of the time it's good for more cowbell. This is a cowbell that you are not going to want to ring. SCP-513 is a cowbell, and if you ring it, you'll have a special friend come find you. That friend is some sort of ghostly monster that will start to stalk you. Doesn't that sound like fun? This thing will constantly be seen out of the corner of your eye and ears, but you can never look directly at it. It looks like some sort of elongated humanoid, and the stress from this thing stalking you will cause you to lose your mind. Also, it will attack you anytime you try to fall asleep, causing sleep deprivation. Basically, you could give this cowbell to an enemy and just ruin their life. And for the number 1 spot, we have SCP-426. This guy is just a toaster. There's
oh yeah, the SCP. Oh my god, I love the SCPs. Especially the one about the darkness, SCP-8. It's like like tangible darkness, you know? It's like even if you go around the darkness, you in this vicinity anywhere, it's supposed to mess with your mind and stuff.
So much so that you will want to be like the toaster. It will cause you to do things.
You will want to be like the toaster, you know, and it's crazy, right? A lot of the SCPs that they speak about on here is in shows like Rick and Morty and stuff like that, you feel me? And it's like they break down on how they go to different realities and they see this shit. So it's like, hey, maybe it's not it's not really theories and it's not myths. You never know. There's realm shifters and stuff.
Number 10, we have SCP-2317.
All right, SOL's Farm. I appreciate that. All right.
Even people who work there have no idea is.
Oh yeah, I got 12 minutes left. Y'all came through right in time.
A large door that's made entirely of wood. Why is this door so important? Why should we be afraid of it? Well, if this door was open, it would unleash what is behind this door, which is a massive cosmic demon from another dimension that only has one goal.
Massive
It wants to
cosmic
end life
demon.
in the universe, and it can do that.
But you know, like, that's kind of like a contradiction because
bite. You know, 2-bite brownies.
A demon is what, like an opposer, you know, like a devil, right?
And number 9, we have
So if you're a cosmic opposer, like who are you
Bugs are
opposing?
one of the best horror tropes. They never get old. It's like zombies with a nice hint of
That's-
sci-fi. Now
that's a
this
conversation
SCP
for
is
another
just
time.
that. It's a parasite beetle that works its way into intelligent life, and then it starts to control it, so it can add things to
Oh
its
my
hive
God, these
mind.
bets
It has
is
been
kicking
discovered
my
that a
ass
planet
today.
light years away from our own has been working to get closer to us. Why? Because it has been enslaved by these brain bugs and wants to come here to make us part of their undead army. There are 30 billion people on this planet, and they are all infected.
I can't
However, their force
stand
of
using
these
these two.
brain
Go
bugs has
ahead.
made them
We'll
one of
make
the
it
most
happen.
advanced and happy civilizations we could possibly fathom. So it's a toss-up. You get world peace and advanced tech, or you get free will. You can't have them both. At number 8,
Free
we have
will,
the
you
King,
can't
the
have them both.
Broken God. If you watched our last video, then you will know that we talked about the God of flesh. That is the cause of all creation in the universe. Now, what triggered that creation? It was a fight between this God and that God, according to the SCP. McCain, if I am saying that right, it sounds like I'm saying McCain, like those people who make those frozen French fries. This is very different. It has nothing to do with French fries. This McCain is the god of all technology and is worshipped by the Church of the Broken God. He has the power to create and shape tech in all forms.
Oh, I remember this one. I go around and catch a little baby chocobo.
Couldn't even fathom. He exists beyond dimensions, and he is currently floating around through space in an unconscious state. Even the smallest molecule falling off this guy can be powerful enough to end all life on Earth.
Imagine
And
in
while
real
he
life,
is
right? I would
conscious, he
never
has the
drive
ability
a
to
fucking
access
car if
all
I could get a
knowledge of the
chocobo.
multiverse. Basically, this guy's a god beyond anything we could comprehend, but why isn't he number 1? How powerful do you have to be number 1 on this list? Number 7, we have the Hanged King. Remember that techno god we just talked about? Well, this guy would be above him in the hierarchy. The Hanged King is a ruler of an interdimensional space that is inhabited by a kingdom of elder gods. These things aren't the most powerful beings in the known multiverse according to the SCP Foundation, but any one of them could create or destroy a universe at will. Sometimes they do by accident. And this guy is the ruler. He is extremely powerful, and he's even able to attack and harm the Tree of Knowledge, which is the anchor of all known existence, and if that thing goes away, reality will go along with it. That doesn't sound very fun, I got to say. I'd rather be than
6
not
people
be. There is no
in this
question.
stream.
At number 6,
Live
we
in
have
effect. I feel so cool and popular.
SCP-001-J,
Oh my God.
the big red button.
I'm
You know
gonna
when you see a
cry.
big red button, it says don't touch it, and then you touch it, and then something bad happens? Well, yeah, that is basically what this
This is
SCP
bullshit,
is,
Flash.
but there's something else attached to it. If you touch it, then reality will melt away, and there will literally be nothing left. Now, this SCP itself is not conscious, but it does seem to have the ability to attract people to it.
Let's see.
When someone is around the button, they will
I
have
don't
an
make it a little
insane
baby
urge to
chocobo,
press the
right?
button,
I should
even
find
if
some
they know
more
will
spoons
lead
so
to
I can
the
see
end
by
of
that.
the
Flew
world
over
as we
this
know
way,
it.
didn't it?
Because this button is such a danger
Alright,
to
let's
us,
see,
it
we're
has
gonna
been
find
kept in an
this little
extremely
thingy.
secret location. 3 kilometers below sea level, and all the guards are automated robots, so they can't be tempted.
Guards
and they
are
will kill
automated
anyone who attempts
robots.
to enter the containment area. The box that contains this big old
It
button
has
is
a
made of pure
computation
tungsten,
system
and then there's
that can
another
be
layer of tungsten
manipulated.
around that box.
Alright,
Tungsten and
I've
tungsten
been playing
in the
this
button
game
inside
forever and I
3
can't find
kilometers
this
under
lead.
the ocean. There's a lot going on here, but there's no chance anyone could press it unless you can get shot.
And look, he over here playing around. He's supposed to be helping me. Get your
At
ass
number
up.
5, we have
Get up.
SCP-001-SDL. How will the end of the world happen? Well, this idea states that it will be caused by some sort of mutation caused by the sun.
It moved.
Basically,
Oh,
this
okay,
is
so
a
it's over here
horrible
somewhere.
accident where the sun starts to mutate anyone it touches into goo monsters that are basically
Yeah,
amorphous
alright. I
blobs
knew
that
it
are
was.
melted flesh that combine together to become even larger blobs. They are all zombies that want to consume everything on the planet. Those who have not fallen never go out in the sun and they try to survive. This might be the worst doomsday scenario ever. At number 4, we have SCP-682. This is by
Like,
far
what would
one
you
of the
really do
most
if a zombie
famous
apocalypse was
SCPs.
to
It is
really
a
happen?
reptilian creature,
Let me know.
And it is extremely intelligent. It has the ability to regenerate its body and has been known to kill anything in its path and is currently contained in the SCP Foundation. But it has escaped
They make it
several
look
times, and
so
this has led
enticing
to
in the
deaths
shows and the
of
movies.
thousands of SCP Foundation workers. There was one occasion where the SCP Foundation took SCP-682 to the Gate Guardian, who we covered in part 1 of this list, but he's basically a giant being of light and is able to strike anyone with his giant sword of light. Anyone who gets hit with this sword of light vanishes from existence. There's nothing nothing left afterwards. He struck SCP-682 with this sword and he was still alive. He then spit in the Gate Guardian's face and the Gate Guardian then struck him again. After this, SCP-628 was unconscious and returned to the
Seems
SCP
like this
Foundation to be put back into
SCP
containment,
list
which is where it
stole
stays.
some
The
things from
scariest thing about
Lovecraft.
this SCP is
I
that
don't know if you
SCP
guys are hip to
Foundation
H.P.
asked
Lovecraft.
SCP-343, who is known as God because he has created everything we know, to kill SCP-682. And he said, he is not one of my creations, you
we
deal
outta
with
here
him
now.
yourself.
There you
Oh,
go.
that is freaky. At number 3, we have SCP-3007. This SCP only exists if we know it exists, so I probably shouldn't be
It
telling you this, but I'm
exists
going to tell you.
only if you know it
become aware of
exists.
SCP-3007, you will visit a world
You
next
know,
time you fall asleep.
there's a lot
It's
of things
world
that's
to our own, and basically it's
alleged to be like that. For instance, like dreams, you know. Dreams exist because humanity exists, and humanity exists because dreams exist. It's like a Schrodinger's cat type of effect.
Wants to. It has done this to intelligent life for millions, possibly billions
I
of
will,
years,
therefore I
taking
am. I am,
planets
therefore
by
I
infecting
will.
their minds, and then have them spread the word of its existence until they're all trapped in its dimensions, and it can warp them forever, torturing them endlessly. That's At number 2, we have SCP-999. Now, this SCP is a weird one because if you look up SCP-999, it just looks like a little blob with a huge smile that has been nicknamed the Tickle Monster. Why would it be on
Yeah,
this
nah,
list?
my other
Well,
one,
there's
man.
something
I
called the
had started it off wrong, you know.
list, which is
I started
basically
off
the
wrong.
devil
I had
of
went
all
and I had like
religions,
paid for views and stuff. I was like, nah, I shouldn't have did this. I seen all of the bots that was in there and all of that dumb stuff. I was like, nah, I don't. So I started it over, got rid of it.
So there's that. So this little
Like,
dude
I'm
is
just gonna start from
secretly
scratch,
insanely
you know.
powerful, and who knows
Just
when
do it
he's
straight
gonna
from the
do it.
mud.
At number 1, we have the Brothers of Death. So what was made at the start of the creation? What
Somebody
was the
had
first
hit
thing
me
that
up
happened
too
when
and like let me know like, yo, that wasn't really the right way of doing things, you know, like. And then I started to see it. Like, got 3,000 followers, no views. What's the point in that, you know? At the end of the day, I'd rather have people on here that I could build with, you know what I mean? And really vibe with, play some games, you know? Talk about bullshit like that, little SCPs and shit.
on even the tree of
You know?
life, which gives us the reality that we live in. There are 3 brothers. There's Small Death. He's the first one we will cover. He has the least amount of power out of the 3 brothers and the least amount of responsibility. He handles the death of life. Then there is Great Death. He handles the death of resources, planets, and anything that is
It definitely was a good learning experience, I'll tell you that.
like there's some sort of multi-dimensional
So at the end of the day,
beings or accountants or something like that.
it's still a good thing in my eyes.
Little things. And finally,
Definitely
there is
needed that.
Great Death. He is the most
Cause you know,
powerful and
I've been
he
gaming
is the
forever,
death
but I
of
never really,
reality.
you know,
He can
was
dismiss the
was
universe away with
too hip to the
As
like
we
the
mentioned before,
exposure
the
part of it.
Scarlet King is one of the most evil and
Even like
powerful
really
things
too much of an online gaming, cause you know I'm mainly an RPG.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have
I started to get into like Warzone and stuff like that afterwards, you know, just to play with other people.
Vampire, worm, human hybrid that at any moment could be in any one of its forms, which includes mixtures of the 3. In the humanoid form, this SCP appears as a male with pale skin who is stuck at the age of 24. This SCP has different colored eyes, with the left eye being bright blue with its pupil being a bright red flame, and its right eye being bright red with a bright blue flame pupil. When initially captured, it was quite a process for the authority personnel involved, as when shot at, the bullets just bounced off of the
Right, I'm
SCP's
not too
body.
mad at that.
SCP-7213 is not fully contained and is actually allowed to go wherever he wants as long as he's wearing his specially made coordinate transmitter cuff. You don't have to worry too much if you were to encounter this SCP unless you harm
the crazy
it or
part,
anyone
that's
that it
like
cares
one of
In that case, you should
stories about
definitely be
Little Red
prepared
Riding
for
Hood,
the
you know,
worst
and that's why she has the red hood, is because she is actually the wolf, and the red hood is supposed to be magical, and it keeps her from turning into a wolf.
Than the other ones today, and that is
Isn't that a
because it is
story
more of
turner?
an etheric entity. This
How
creature
you
has
gonna
the
tell your
ability
mother
to
you ate her
manifest
mother?
itself as an
My
enormous
grandma.
aquatic predator, but only to those who have been given a full description of its appearance, so I'll try to refrain from doing that today. People who have been infected by the creature won't really show any symptoms or abnormal behavior, but it is possible that they might show an extreme aversion to going into
That's
the
crazy.
water.
How did they?
If an infected person
I thought
enters the
that.
water and is
Yeah,
fully
see,
submerged,
that's some
no
bullshit.
matter
Not
the
one
depth,
warning
they
sign
will
came up and they still
completely
hit me with
disappear
it.
underneath the surface of the water. Most of the time, they will reappear a few moments later in a state of total panic, frantically trying to get out of the water. But other times, instead of reappearing above the water, you'll instead see blood and debris cloud it, with the debris later being able to be confirmed as the vanished person. The lucky ones who have survived have explained that while they had vanished, they were transported to the vast ocean where they were actively being pursued by SCP-1128. I don't know about you guys, but I don't ever want to encounter this one. In our number 8 spot today, we have SCP-7340. This SCP is
The crazy part is that
storage drums
you
that are
get to
said
thinking, what if they're only really aggressive and mad like that because they was held captive 9 times out of 10,
the drums
tried to
themselves
be
don't
killed
seem
in
to
the
contain
process.
any sort of anomalous features, and outside of surgical settings, neither does the isoflurane, but when used inside of a surgical setting, things quickly go awry. This SCP isoflurane is said to cause full body paralysis as expected, but it does not trigger unconsciousness or suppress pain. Patients remain conscious and aware for the duration of their surgery, but are unable to move or otherwise communicate. That's definitely an absolute nightmare, and one scenario that so many people fear. There is one positive catch about this SCP, however, and that is that it increases the success rate of experimental or high-risk surgeries by 85%. That is exactly why this SCP is sometimes allowed to be used, but it is, of course, only in very specific and controlled circumstances. In our number 7 spot today, we have SCP-7243. This SCP is quite different than expected because this is actually one that appears as a paintbrush with the bristles coated in what appears to be a redacted branded super glue. The research into this glue shows that when used to bind two items together, it isn't just gluing them together, it's connecting them at an atomic level. Of course, this prompted more research and testing began on what happens when certain materials become connected to others. While most results weren't necessarily positive ones, some results were severely worse than others. The worst of them all was when flesh was tested against flesh. When this happens, a new creature was created, dubbed SCP-7243.
You see, it seems like that the problem is people keep testing and playing with shit they shouldn't test and play with.
This anomaly began trying to escape containment, so
But just imagine that shit, right? I don't know if anyone here like watches Naruto or anything, but just imagine that, right? You really just wake up and you're like you under an infinite Tsukiyomi for like 10 years or something. We all thought all of these years passed, however you are, 20, 30, whatever the case may be, and you were just inside of someone's illusion.
Coral-like polyps, with each
One of these
individual polyp
SCPs
being
or something.
larger than any known coral species. Some have been measured to have grown over a meter in diameter. SCP-835 has a central mass that is roughly shaped like an oval with a polyp at each end. While this creature is unable to move around the deep sea, they appear to anchor themselves down with their large tentacles that come off of the polyps. The tentacles not only anchor the creature, but they also help in the feeding process, and they are coated with a sticky adhesive substance. This creature has an extremely hard outer shell, which means that diamond drills have been needed in order to help collect even the smallest samples of the specimens. This creature has the ability to secrete a pretty toxic batch of chemicals, parasites, and bacteria, so the idea of completely cracking one open is not something that is currently an option out of fear. SCP-835 also has the ability to grow at an incredibly fast rate, but it can also slow its own growth, sometimes even halting it for 24 hours. In our number number 5 spot today, we have SCP-7038.
So when you add
This
tactic to
SCP
that,
is
they
a
can use that
humanoid
to
sort
like
of
basically
creature,
be
but no one is
immortal.
exactly sure what this creature is made up of. They resemble a human female, but they have crazy crimson hair that's 3 meters long. They also have horns on their head, kind
That's
of
a
like an
shot
ibex.
at the redheads.
And they also have these crazy amber-colored eyes with no pupils and the tongue of a serpent. They have multiple rows of teeth that honestly resemble that of a shark, and they even have a tail that
There's
is
some guys
5
that would like that.
meters in length, and at the end is a spike like a needle. This SCP has the intelligence of a human and can speak multiple languages, but despite this intelligence, this SCP has quite fragmented memories of the outside world. This SCP is kept quite secure with reinforced and bulletproof glass enclosing it, as well as being outfitted with a fast-release trapdoor, and the SCP has to be suspended in the air at all times. In our number 4 spot today, we have SCP-3000. The area where SCP-3000 currently resides is in a region in the Bay of Bengal that is around 300 kilometers in diameter. Because of this creature, any kind of deep-sea diving by civilians is strictly prohibited, because if any contact is made, the humans will need to be immediately contained, quarantined, and processed for an indefinite amount of time. So what is SCP-3000? Well, it is a massive aquatic serpentine creature that resembles the giant moray eel, and because of this resemblance, it makes it hard for the average person to tell the difference. This one is a mostly sedentary creature, which may be due to its incredibly large size. While its exact measurements are unknown, it is believed to measure somewhere around 600 to 900 kilometers in length. This creature is carnivorous, and although it stays in one spot most of the time, that doesn't mean it doesn't have the ability to quickly snap up its prey. It is said that any direct observation or even any individuals within a certain distance of this SCP will experience inexplicable head pain, paranoia, fear, panic, and memory loss. All that being said, I think it's probably just best to stay as far away as possible. In our number 3 spot today, we have SCP-169. SCP-169 is a bit of an enigma because it is said that it cannot and will never be contained.
You heard her.
There's no structure on
Y'all heard
Earth
her.
large or strong enough to hold
She called me a
SCP-169,
nigga.
and while the exact location of it is currently unknown, satellite images suggest that it is located in the southern Atlantic Ocean. SCP-169 is said to be a marine arthropod of massive size, often referred to as a leviathan. At first, it was presumed that the tales were just myths, but during investigation of supposed paranormal activity, its existence became feared. The creature is estimated to have a body length of somewhere from 2,000 to 8,000 kilometers, and it is thought to have existed since the pre-Cambrian era. As far as we know, this single specimen is the only of its kind, and next to nothing is known about its lifestyle. The creature moves quite slowly at a pace of less than 1 kilometer per week, but it is currently believed that it is just adrift. In the area that is believed to be the current location of the creature, there has been regular seismic tremors detected, and that is thought to be indicative of SCP-169's breathing. These tremors cause minor shifts in the island's terrain, so it is believed that the creature is currently dormant. In our number 2 spot today, we have SCP-6348. This SCP is less of a creature and more of an atmospheric phenomenon that is seen over an island in its winter months. It appears like a dense fog, and when it does appear, it covers much of the island and the nearby sea. When exposed to this SCP, terrible things happen to humans. They undergo rapid petrification, which begins in the outer limbs and slowly moves towards the center of the body. It is thankfully a painless process, but terrifying nonetheless. It only takes about 80 minutes for the petrification to fully set in, and because of this, the SCP is a severe risk to all humans. In our number 1 spot today, we have SCP-4751. This SCP is a female humanoid entity that has the ability to shapeshift and manifest itself with the appearance of someone that you would trust and feel safe with. The ultimate manipulation ability. This SCP has been documented as looking like people's friends, parents, colleagues, partners, celebrities, or even
So it seems like all of the SCPs is just like government names for certain mythological creatures that they put out to the public as myth, but they actually went and studied them. That's what I'm really starting to get. You know, because I'm not getting anything like original in their findings on any of these creatures, and they just choose to denounce what's coming from the like our ancestors on all sides, because you know once you find out that they're right on one thing, like for instance, if they was right about these creatures as so-called SCP creatures or mythological creatures, then they might have been right about their depictions on certain events that did happen and is soon to happen. You get what I'm saying?
Be both. Display stuff better. Visit displaystoggo.com today.
The winners of the wars write his story, and then all the type of knowledge gets bent out of shape. With the pride and ego after that. Damn it, I wish I had some. Hey there, JoJo Catch. What's going on? I appreciate you stop by.
Lobsters seem to act as a cohesive unit. It's almost like they all have the same programming, or that they're all part of the same hive.
Even the way lobsters and crabs look, like they're just thinking about something. They look weird.
Regular lobsters. It would seem that they have the ability to solve
well, you know how the saying
puzzles,
goes, you know, like every sea creatures, like they're like aliens of Earth.
Something very strange
they're the
about
aliens of
this
Earth.
grouping of crustaceans is that they have the ability to
Especially
replicate.
crustaceans.
If one of them is destroyed or eaten
I had a
or
brain
even
fart.
killed in any way, the hive will create another one
Alright, this
out
is a
of
quick
thin
hit.
air or water, whatever state they wish to use. This means the number can never drop down, and they do like to stay together. If you separate the hive, they will become stressed. Coming in at number
Collective
9, we have
conscious.
SCP-314J.
Seems like they got something to
Confidence is a
teach
very
us.
important thing, and it's something that many of us struggle with. If you are one of those people, you will want to stay far away from this SCP. This SCP is a book that has a very rude title. At the top of this book, it reads the numerical proof that you suck. But something that's very strange about this book is that once it opens up, there will be nothing inside the book. So why
Harry Potter
does this
vibes?
book have such an insulting title? Well, as you stare at the blank pages, you will see it start to fill in with math. And every calculation on the page will give you a breakdown as to why you suck on a mathematical level. That seems very rude and unnecessary, but
That's
most
deep.
SCPs don't care about your feelings, so why should this one? One positive
Obviously
thing
you
about
do.
this book is the dumber you are, the harder it would be for this book to insult you.
Which one-
Like, I suck at math,
what did you
so
make?
I think this thing could bring up a bunch of numbers, and I would have no idea what's going on, and I would take no offense. Coming in at number 8, we have SCP-5165. Some of the most
Oh, one of those
powerful
SCP
printer
books?
paper that you will ever encounter in your
Nah,
life.
gotta
This
burn
printer
it.
paper comes from a paper mill in Romania. Right off the bat, this doesn't sound terribly exciting. Well, if you use this paper to create something, say a dog out of origami, then that piece of paper will actually get turned into a dog. Okay,
Well, it seems like a lot of
getting
these
somewhere.
things that
So
they're
you
putting
can really
off
turn
as
this
like
paper into
SCPs or
whatever
bad
you
stuff
want,
could still be
which makes
utilized
it
for something
very
good, man. That's what I'm
dangerous.
getting
You would
from
have
this.
to get really good at origami first, but you can make a whole army out of little origami samurai and then have them turn into real soldiers, and then they would go out and storm whatever building
You
you
see,
needed. But
you see, everyone is so quick to attribute anything that could be used for positive to war. Why was the first thing out of his mind soldiers and warriors?
Run rogue and smash through some buildings. So you might have to
Okay,
both
you
be
enjoy your
an
night. I
origami
appreciate you
specialist
stopping
and
through.
a wild
It really means a lot.
Coming in at number 7,
For
we
real.
have SCP-826. Have you ever wanted to create your own world? To take a story that you love and make it into a real
640
universe?
per
Well, I
star
do have an
points.
SCP for
That's
you.
like a star
Why do I
rating.
sound like a used car salesman?
Damn.
Well, if you have a book that you love, all you have to do is put it between this SCP, which is 2 bookends. Once the book is placed, it will start to create a reality in some sort of pocket dimension that
You know,
is
just
the
thinking
whole
outside the box.
book, and you
Imagine
can
that
run around in there as you please.
a lot
Do you
of
like
these
Harry Potter?
SCPs
We'll throw one of the
that
less
they're
traumatizing
talking about,
issues
whatever
in
the
this
case
book
may
and
be,
sit in the
is
Wizarding
just
World background
laying around
and
us
watch
right
as
now.
Harry tries to save the world, or do the opposite and
Just
stop
chilling
Harry
with us.
from being the hero
Vibing.
and side with Voldemort. I don't care what you do. Coming in at number
Some
6,
of them
we
may
have SCP
exist at certain levels on a hierarchy,
This
you know,
SCP works hand
to
in
where
hand
they
with
can,
someone
like, you know,
known as Damien,
interact
and
with
the
us or
two of them
coexist
are
with us,
pretty
you know,
badass duo.
like have
Let's
their
start
plans
with the
going
breakdown
on,
of
so on and so
Damien.
forth.
This
You know,
was
everything's
just some
theorized.
dude who actually wanted to be
Everything's
a great
theorized.
warrior. But I don't know if you have been walking around the world in this day and age, but there aren't a ton of warriors walking around, or even the chance for
there's a lot of
large-scale
warriors
combat,
walking around.
at least not in Canada. The biggest conflict you're going to get into in Canada is probably with a goose. Well, Damien pushed his urges to be a heroic legend down into his soul, and would instead spend hours watching anime with
Oh, they're
intense
preparing.
fight scenes. That's one way to live out your
Because
dream.
you gotta understand, there's a
Well,
lot
one
of
day
different
Damien
battles.
got
It's
the
not just, you know,
call.
everyone's
He was
quick to only
walking
think of the
past
physical battle.
SCP-5175,
There's individuals
and
that go
their
through mental
spirits
battles on a daily
connected.
basis,
See,
you know what I'm saying? And they just need
SCP-5175 is actually a knife
someone
that
to
has the
acknowledge
soul
that there's
of a
even a
samurai
war
that's
going
been
on.
trapped
You know what I'm saying?
inside it, a witch
But
cursed the
no one
samurai
does. And they
to
just
forever
do that
live
shit on
in
their
the
own.
knife. His name is Kuritaka
No winning no war
Hanzo,
without
and his
camaraderie.
soul will forever be trapped
Need the
in the knife
comrades.
until he claims 1,000 souls.
There's a
Now,
war
neither
going
David
on
nor
outside, no
Hanzo
man is
are
safe
evil,
from.
so
It
how
don't
are
matter
they
if
going
you
to
3
get
feet or
these
8'1".
souls? Well, by taking out evil monsters. See, the knife that Damien wields will take the soul of the person it kills and trap them in a shadow realm. So unkillable monsters can swiftly
But you know
be
the good thing
dispensed
about it
with
is, though,
the
you
use
know,
of this supernatural weapon. Coming in at number 5,
people
we have
think that war
SCP-343. This is
eventually
the SCP
produces
that will make
peace.
the
You know, like
perfect
it
Halo
does in a
game. Just
sense,
kidding,
but it
that's
produces
343 Studios. And I
peace
hope
in a
that
cycle.
it is the perfect Halo
And
game,
peace
but
in a
if
cycle
not,
just
don't
produces
come
more
for me.
war because it's caught in said
SCP-343 may be
cycle.
the
You
most
know,
powerful SCP. I guess the
But,
best
like,
way to describe this SCP is that it's pretty
it's
much
like in the
God.
middle of
It's an
that, there's
all-powerful
always
being
that one,
can really do
that one
anything.
piece
It's
of
thought
hope
this
and
SCP
faith, and
has
that's what this shit
created
that really,
everything,
you know,
and it's watching
changes
all of us
everything.
live
Hope
our
and
lives
faith, not
for
war or
reasons that we
peace.
could never comprehend.
All it takes is a
I
little
mean,
bit
if
of
this
hope and a little
SCP
bit
is
of
real,
faith.
it is an all-powerful being that created
One
everything.
person.
It can make an entire universe in the
That shit
blink
shifts
of an
everything
eye. So is
anybody
this
was trying to
SCP
do
real?
or trying to
I don't know, dude. I
accomplish,
don't
you know,
have
so on
those
and
kind
so
of
forth.
answers. Are you kidding me? I barely know what to eat for dinner most of the time, and I
Word.
end up ordering something off of
To have
Uber
true
Eats that I could have
conviction of
made
what you're
myself
trying to do
for
or
a
what you're
fifth
saying
of
you're
the
trying to do
price.
or what
Coming
you're
in at
willing
number
to do,
4,
you
we
know.
have SCP-610. All right, everyone, put on your mask because this SCP is an
Release
infectious
arm
disease.
restraints.
I think something like this will
Oh, he
freak
rocked
everyone
weight.
out
He had
at a
on
time
he had on
like
weight.
this. So this
Let me
SCP
take mine
will
off.
start as a little itch. It's unknown if this SCP can be contracted through just skin contact or if you can get it through air contamination, but I wouldn't take the risk either way. At first, this SCP will seem like nothing, maybe a little eczema flare-up. It will start with just a little bit of itching on the chest, and then it will spread to your arms and face. But at first, it will just be an itch. But by this time, you should start to worry. Hours in, you'll be in intense pain, and you'll have scarring all over your body and blisters everywhere. 5 hours in, you are done for, and this thing will have fully misshapen your body, and you will have new limbs growing out of places where they shouldn't be. Yeah, if you haven't thought about going to the doctor at this point, then you might want to consider it because things are going to start to get out of hand when you turn into a horrible monster and then start spreading the disease to other people in the final stage of this SCP. It was discovered in Russia, and since then it has been contained by the SCP Foundation. Coming at number 3, we have SCP-3352. Not every SCP has to be evil or even intelligent. Some of them just have to be a thing that exists, and no one can explain how it was able to do something so incredible. This SCP
you got
is just
lucky,
a support
champ.
beam. It was
We'll
located
try
under
again
a
next
petroleum
season.
refinery in Pennsylvania. Honestly, if nothing ever went wrong in this facility, then we wouldn't even know that this SCP existed. But one day, the petroleum refinery went up in flames. People tried to put the fire out before it reached some of the dangerous chemicals that were being
no
housed in this
potions.
facility,
But
but
see,
there
no,
was no such
I've been
luck.
trying to
A
play all
stash
games
of
recently
liquid
without using
propane
like
caught fire
items
and then
as
mixed
much
with
as
some of the
possible.
chemicals used to refine the petroleum, and
If
it
not
made a
at all.
substance so hot that it liquefied the concrete in the building,
right
and
now,
there
I
was
wish I had a
literally a
potion for
boiling
that
soup of
reason.
chemicals below the facility that was burning at
got a
2,000 degrees
potion,
Celsius. Every last support beam under the building was incinerated from the intense heat, except
See?
for one beam that
This
never
is your brain on
deteriorated.
drugs.
And
This is what happens.
Don't
And
rent
then
a
vanilla
car.
dies.
Rent the cars you love with the prices you'll love even more. 6. Rent the car.
O'Keefe's Lip Repair is hard-working skincare with guaranteed relief for extremely dry, cracked lips.
Oh,
still stands
feel
there
like that was
to this
perfect.
day. Coming in at number 2, we have SCP-225. 2 massive spheres that are supposed to be somewhere on planet Earth. It could be that the SCP
Railgun.
Foundation has already
hit me
found
with
them,
the ooh-ah.
or that some country is keeping them secret. Now, both of these spheres can't be moved by any force known to man. Both of them seem to be indestructible.
let it hit me
What
like
makes
that?
this SCP so dangerous is that if for whatever reason they were to collide, they would create a
Oh, I
shockwave that
should've
could wipe
switched it
out
to
a
dual
whole
cast, though.
country, because neither of them
Right,
would take
got
any
him.
damage. All the
Crack
energy
guard
would be pushed
power.
outwards. Now, why do these 2 massive orbs exist? Well, that still hasn't been answered. Some people think that they could be separate universes that could be encased in something that we don't understand. This could present a new threat in itself because these SCPs could collide and then could potentially unlock each other, and those universes could try to take over the space that
what's
our
going on
universe
here.
exists in, and the 3 universes would be existing in the same place, race and could wipe out one another. And coming at the #1 spot, we have SCP-5092, an extinction level event that is directly attached to the president itching his nose. That seems like a pretty big deal to attach to something so trivial as the president scratching his nose, but I don't make the rules. I just tell you guys what's going on in the SCP universe. So the way that this works is apparently the president of the United States gets an itch on his nose at the same time every night. This itch will always come at exactly 7:53 p.m. and it's not because there's a little invisible dude tickling his nose. It's because the universe will send the feeling of an itchy nose to the president. So it's a genuine itchy nose feeling. Now, as long as the leader of the free world reaches in and scratches his nose, then everything will keep flowing as it should. But something that he doesn't know is that when the feeling of the itchy nose materializes on his face, it also materializes an asteroid in outer space. This thing will start blasting towards Earth, and if it makes contact, it will destroy the planet and kill every last living thing. But as soon as the president scratches his nose, it disappears. So just know that any day could be our last, and it's attached to an itchy nose.
Starting off this countdown, we have SCP-1959. SCP-1959 has yet to be contained by the Foundation. It is identified as a white spacesuit similar to the Soviets' SK-1. Now, I know what you're thinking. How is a random spacesuit floating in space so scary? Well, the suit is indestructible, and the helmet's visor is damaged and misted over, so we can't see what on Earth is in the spacesuit. Not only that, but it emits a lot of gamma radiation. SCP-1959 is said to continuously orbit around the Earth at a fairly consistent speed. It has been observed to change between low to high Earth orbit. Also, if it encounters any space objects as it's orbiting, well, it just rams right through them. Now, this SCP is capable of moving independently, but most of the time it remains motionless, just drifting through space. Another scary fact is the Foundation once observed SCP-1959 trying to break its own visor during a period where it seemed distressed. So, who is this creature and what does it want? I wish I had the answer to that question. In our 9th spot, we have SCP-2362. SCP-2362 can be best described as an object about 900 kilometers in length that is bell-shaped with 13 trailing appendages, making it look somewhat like a jellyfish. It was discovered in 1983 by Foundation researchers.
Plays with stocks or anything that deals in stocks, but TSPT, keep an eye out for it.
SCP-2362 has the ability to propel itself by expanding and contracting its appendages. As of now, we really don't know what to expect from SCP-2362. It's best that we just continue to keep its existence a secret from the public. Moving on to number 8, we have SCP-007. SCP-007 is sadly not 007, so it's not James Bond. SCP-007 is a really weird mass of, microplanets that is located in a humanoid's body. The humanoid is an unnamed 25-year-old Caucasian man, and he basically has a whole version of Earth just chilling in his abdomen. Although the man is missing his abdomen, he's not suffering. Instead of normal flesh on his abs, he's got a sphere composed of soil and water. This sphere has its own weather patterns and gravitational pull. He's also got microscopic organisms living in it. When he was asked about the thing growing in his stomach, he said, and I quote, "I just woke up one day and there it was. I don't have any idea how it got there." Weird. Currently, he's confined to a 10 by 10 meter living area that he cannot leave. In our 7th spot, we have SCP-1694. SCP-1694 is a bunch of remains from an extraterrestrial nanotechnological device that was deployed on the surface of Venus. We don't know by who, when, or why, but what we do know is that the entity is 2 millimeters in length, can self-replicate, repair itself, and quickly extract resources. It's said that SCP-1694 is extremely aggressive towards all organic matter, whether it be living or dead. So we need to stay away. If it encounters any organic matter, then it will shred the object quickly, and then reassemble it to create a mass with more sophisticated organs and durable appendages. It can even take dead tissue or matter and then reconstruct that. Coming in at number 6, we have SCP-4524. SCP-4524 is an astronomical body about the same size as our moon. except it's made completely out of human cells. As a result, it's thought that this SCP was once a humanoid creature, but over the years, it adapted to this weird, massive space body. When SCP-4524 was first discovered, the Foundation planned to send humans on a mission to explore it. But it was deemed too dangerous, so they sent a rover instead. And the rover came back with some very interesting findings after collecting a variety of samples. For example, the soil was made up of dead skin cells. The exterior building material was muscle tissue and bone marrow. And the liquid in the river was a mixture of bodily fluids like urine and sweat. Now the Foundation is just working on keeping its existence a secret. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with SCP-5060. SCP-5060 is a terrestrial exoplanet with an unusually high number of satellites. It's currently impossible to contain. As of January 2020, it is said that it has 1,260 satellites. Every 15 to 26 years, SCP-5060 launches a new satellite. So it's believed that there is some kind of extraterrestrial civilization there. SCP-5060 is said to be roughly 0.95 times the radius and 0.9 times the mass of Earth. Its atmosphere is very dense, consisting of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, argon, and sulfur dioxide. As a result, the planet's surface cannot be viewed by visible light from space. The Foundation has attempted multiple times to land probes on the planet, but upon entry, they always lose communication. On top of that, SCP-5060 does not like probes. As a result, it usually causes it to become aggressive and fire attacks, especially when the probes try to recover material from it. No probes have ever managed to escape or survive the attacks. Coming in at number 4, we have SCP-5845. SCP-5845 is a region on Mercury located from Mercury's magnetosheath to its crust, to its mantle, and then the outer core. In order to enter this area, you need a head-on trajectory towards the surface at a very high speed. However, once inside, you'll experience auditory hallucinations. Some have heard roosters crowing or cawing or whatever noise they make, or rams bleating. These will only increase as you approach SCP-5845's sphere. At this time, containment of SCP-5845 is not necessary, as it takes quite a bit to actually access this SCP. Moving on to number 3, we have SCP-3485. SCP-3485 is located 17 light years away from Earth and has been described as looking like a large lobster. Emphasis on the large part. So in comparison, the sun's diameter is about 1.39 million kilometers. This creature is larger than the sun. From head to tail, it measures at 1.56 million kilometers. SCP-3485 was first discovered by an amateur astronomer back in 1999. But when he tried to publish his findings, a lot of people made fun of him. Like, hello, who's gonna believe a ginormous lobster? But then in 2001, the SCP Foundation discovered SCP-3485 for themselves. SCP-3485 is said to be abnormally resistant to damage. In addition, it can withstand radiation when coming in contact with small stars. In fact, it feeds on star material. Now my question is, will it taste good with butter? Coming in at number 2, we have SCP-3493. SCP-3493 is a bunch of growing, extremely massive black holes located across multiple different universes. There's one located in each universe. Apparently, if anyone looks at any of these black holes, then they will experience a form of severe dementia. They will lose the ability to process any kind of information, meaning they can't create or retain memories or perform simple tasks or functions. SCP-3493 also has the ability to hide any information on itself. So in order to learn more about it, you have to travel to another universe and they will be able to interpret the data for you. And in our number 1 spot, we have SCP-2399. SCP-2399 was discovered back in 1963 and is described as a massive mechanical structure located in Jupiter's lower atmosphere. To us, it looks like a large red vortex, which is why it's sometimes called the Great Red Spot. Now, some say that this continent-sized structure is an alien spaceship that was sent to destroy Earth, but accidentally crashed on Jupiter. Now, it is slowly repairing itself. It does so by releasing small repair drones. Some of the drones stay to protect itself, while others go off looking for its missing parts. But despite its damage, it seems to have a limitless power supply, electromagnetic shielding, and matter-disrupting weaponry. It's currently repaired 59% of itself. We should be worried when it's 100% repaired.
This is like some fucking Saw shit. What will you do?
He had seen on the cliff. So it seems to make sense. The man had been walking with his flashlight and had unfortunately fallen. But it doesn't end there. When the coroner arrived to inspect the body, it was determined the man had clearly been dead for over 48 hours. So how could it have been him shining his flashlight on the cliff the night before? Apparently, another search and rescue team member had been near the area and hadn't seen any other people. To this day, there seems to be no explanation for what that light was. Number 5, burned mannequins. Another park ranger on Reddit shared his experience while working at a national wildlife refuge that had formerly been home to a U.S. Army lab site. The site had been completely transformed to become a wildlife refuge, with years of thorough cleanup needing to be done on things like barbed wire fences and barricades before it could be opened. One night, when the ranger was walking deep into the forest, he saw figures in the distance. This caught him off guard, as you're not permitted to leave the trails at all. So who was out there? The ranger announced himself and moved closer, and what he discovered was 6 mannequins in military uniforms, which appeared to have been badly burnt. 6 burned figures standing around in the woods in the dark of night would have been scary for anyone to stumble upon, though apparently he chalked it up to having been part of a fabric test. Still pretty scary to discover though, and to think it was somehow missed in the decade-long cleanup of the park. Number 4, only resident. A park ranger for a small island was the only year-round resident of the area. The island had no bridges or ferries and could only be accessed by private boats. The island would be crowded in the summer, but in the off-season, the island was only inhabited by the ranger. Walking at night, he was adventuring around the island, seeing if he could hike the entire distance. He saw a flash of white in the distance, thinking it was a herd of the brown and white deer which were local to the area. He pressed forward, before hearing something move again. Suddenly, out of the woods came a 6-foot-tall man, wearing a bright white shirt. He sprinted straight up to the ranger with a strange grin on his face, before shouting and laughing loudly, quickly sprinting back into the woods again. The ranger was rightfully terrified, because as far as he knew, he was the only person on the small island. For the next few days, he tried to find any evidence of another person living on the island, but never found any campsite, boats, or other signs of life. Number 3, mysterious stranger. A ranger was leading a hiking trip to the top of a mountain in North Carolina, a difficult hike far from any civilization. When they reached the peak, they set up a camp on a beautiful clear night. Since it was so nice out, after the group had gone to bed in their tents, the ranger chose to sleep outside in a hammock, reading a book to pass the time. Due to the brightness of the camp and the moon, it was easy for them to see around the camp and the trail that they had taken to get there. They were soon caught off guard by the sight of something moving, expecting it to be a bear. But as they got closer, they realized it was the shape of a person. They found it odd to see someone at the top of the difficult and long trail at night with no light or any sign of gear. They watched the person move closer towards the camp before the figure stopped, staring out at the camp. The figure stood there for a while before moving to sit under a tree, still staring intently. The ranger watched the man sit there for what was apparently a few hours, before the figure got up and made his way back down to the trail. This left the poor ranger with a paranoid feeling of being followed for the remainder of the trip. Number 2, deer head. It's not uncommon to find animals or animal remains in the woods, circle of life and all that. But a Yellowstone ranger described their very bizarre experience which occurred near a valley deep into the park. While walking a trail, they found in the middle of the path the head of a deer. What was strange was that the head was perfectly clean, no sign of blood, and no sign of an animal having tried to eat it. The ranger didn't find any other signs of other animals that may have been around the area and done this. They also had no explanation for why a human may have done this, as it was a doe with no antlers that a hunter may want to collect. The experience left the rangers shaking and desperately trying to come up with an explanation for the bizarre and shocking discovery, but none could be found. Number 1, skin changer. One wildland firefighter shares a story that his supervisor had told him many times. Apparently, in Idaho, the crew had been working on a large fire incident and would have to be there through the night in order to deal with it. The supervisor went out on an ATV to get a look at the nearby area, when a large cat, seemingly a bobcat, ran out into the road. The animal stood there and stared at him for a while, before letting out a loud scream and running up a tree nearby the road. While startling, it didn't appear to be any reason for concern. Further down the road, he discovered an abandoned cabin. This was also strange, as the land was federal property and there should be no buildings. The house appeared derelict and was boarded up, everything inside appearing incredibly out of order. Unsettled, the supervisor got back on his ATV to head back, but at the exact same place where he had seen the bobcat, a woman stood in the road with a nightgown and bare feet. He asked if she needed help, to which she responded with a scream, before running up the same tree the bobcat had, faster than any human would be able to. After returning, he asked locals about the cabin in the area, recounting his experience, to which they told him that he had likely had an encounter with a skin changer.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have tracks. Okay, so the last thing we want when talking about a huge sinkhole that happens to be in the ocean that holds many different secrets and mysteries at the bottom is to hear that we have found tracks, but we don't know what's causing these tracks. In December of 2018, a team of explorers and scientists decided to finally take a trip down to the bottom to see all there is to find at the bottom of the Great Blue Hole. We'll talk about this expedition a lot today, so remember it. Erica Bergman, who was the chief submarine pilot on the expedition and who is an oceanographer, explained that they had observed tracks at the bottom of the sinkhole, but that they were unable to identify them and that they remain, quote, open to interpretation. This alone isn't the most terrifying thing there, but when we take in some of the other things we know about the hole, like how it's the second largest marine sinkhole in the world, or how there could potentially be an entire cave system lurking somewhere in there, more on that later by the way, things start to get a little more unsettling. It quickly becomes clear that these mystery tracks are only a drop in the bucket of the mysteries of the Great Blue Hole. In our number 9 spot today, we have stalactites. The Great Blue Hole is a really popular diving destination, despite the fact that divers obviously can't go all the way to the bottom for a multitude of reasons. When diving here, you definitely need quite a bit of experience beforehand, and for those lucky ones who have done the work, they might be able to get just deep enough to see the incredible stalactites this sinkhole holds. While these are gorgeous to look at, they are part of the reason that we know some of the most ancient history behind this place at all. Stalactites are only formed when water is dripping down stone. This gave scientists the insight they needed to realize that this wasn't always a place that was submerged in water. In fact, they concluded that this was actually a big, dry cave and one of the most prolific eras in the history of our beautiful planet. This means that at some point there was probably a ton of stuff living in it. They believe that the cave likely formed during the last ice age, so sometime prior to 14,000 years ago, but at the end of the ice age it ended up flooding, collapsing, and thus we have the Great Blue Sinkhole. In our number 8 spot today, we have movements. This is one that really ties into the last one with the discovery of the stalactites. Of course, when they first found them, they took some samples so that they would be able to confirm their above-sea formation. And when doing this analysis, it was realized that not only did they form above sea level, but that some of them were off vertical by about 5 degrees, and that these changes were consistent. This gave another very valuable insight into the history of this location and led scientists to the conclusion that there must have been some past geological shift or tilting of the plateau underneath at some point. This event would have been followed by a long period of relative stillness. This change in the stalactites showed us that the land must have been moving as well, not just the sea level rising. It's not the most unsettling thing on this list, but it certainly is cool. It's really amazing how such a small change can show us so much. In our number 7 spot today, we have trash. It has become abundantly clear that there really isn't any place on Earth that is free from human influence, and that most definitely includes our litter. If trash can make it to the deepest depths on Earth in the Challenger Deep, of course trash can somehow find its way down to the bottom of the Big Blue Hole. During that 2018 expedition we spoke about earlier, the team stumbled across more than they were expecting when they found a littered 2-liter Coke bottle. I'm glad it wasn't Pepsi. And they also found a lost GoPro. They were even able to see that this GoPro still contained some vacation photos. Safe to say that it's not the most remarkable discovery they made down there, but it should be something that might be a little concerning to us all. In our number 6 spot today, we have sand. Like I mentioned before, this sinkhole obviously has an incredibly rich history, and we are just starting to learn about the things that it holds, but it takes time, equipment, and money to really be able to have these sorts of large expeditions like the one in 2018.
I'm about to shut it down for the
There
night.
might be fossils or other things just waiting to be uncovered that we don't even know about yet. But the clock is
Really
ticking.
appreciate everybody
As it
for
turns out,
stopping by,
as
helping
quickly
me
as
build
the
this
blue
thing
hole
up right,
appeared,
you
it
know?
might also be disappearing. Apparently, there are
Real
waterfalls of
community
sand
type
that are
shit.
continually falling into the hole, and it's
Enjoy
slowly
your
but
night.
surely being filled up. It's like a real, very large, kind of scary hourglass, essentially. At least it's not something that's going to happen overnight, so for now we still have time to admire its beauty and take a look at all of the mysteries it might be holding. Maybe it just serves as a reminder that nothing is permanent, except for the internet. In our number 5 spot today, we have more caves. So remember Erica Bergman we talked about before in the first one? She was the one who led the expedition in 2018, the submarine pilot. Well, she didn't only talk about mysterious tracks. She also